All right, what I'm going to do, oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, I'm going to call the special meeting of the Lancaster City Council and Palmdale City Council to order. And I'm going to ask for roll call, and I'll start with Mayor Paris. Please call the Lancaster City Council meeting to order.
Lancaster Council meeting is called.
City Council members.
Present.
Molly.
Present.
Dan.
Present.
Vice Mayor Chris.
Present.
Mayor Paris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now, Mayor Betancourt, please call the Palmdale City Council meeting to order.
Could I please get a roll call to call our council to order?
Mayor Betancourt.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Otacon.
Present.
Council members Bishop.
Here.
Loa.
Here.
And Olson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Now we are going to do an invocation, and I am assuming that it's going to be Councilmember Doris. Are you going to do it? You are now. Would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Those that don't mind standing, would you stand? To all of you that pray to your God, I pray to Jesus, so I hope I don't offend you. So let's bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you right now. We thank you for this joint meeting. We pray right now, God, for unity of mind, unity of spirit. We pray right now for wisdom. You said in your word, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask for it. I thank you right now, God, for the things that we're going to accomplish. I thank you right now for a united valley. We pray right now for all of those, God, that are in charge, from our council, our county, our police, our fire department. We pray right now for favor from you, that we can serve your people, God, in excellence. And all these things we pray in Jesus' name. Thank God. Amen.
Amen. And now I'll go to the other side, and I will ask Councilmember Bishop, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, I'm going to start, and I'm going to ask both mayors to say a few words, but I just want to thank you all. We started this and have had these joint meetings, and it's an opportunity for us to discuss issues that are impacting not only the County of Los Angeles, but both cities, and get feedback from the community. And I really do enjoy this, and I want to thank you all for making this happen. I know it's a lot of work to put this together with one city council, but then with two, and then bringing the county into it. I know it's a lot of work, so I want to thank all the staff that made this all happen. I want to thank the public for being here. And with that, I will go to Palmdale to say a few words.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. We do appreciate you showing up and giving your opinions and thoughts on our topics today. Thank you to staff who has arranged this and made it happen. It's very difficult to get everybody in one room at one time. It's kind of like herding cats in a bag. This is very important for both cities to have an open dialogue on certain topics that will benefit the region as a whole. And I just want to thank everyone who participated in making this happen.
Very good. Mayor of Lancaster.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the supervisor for making this happen. Supervisor Barger has been instrumental in bringing the two cities together since the moment she was elected. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to recognize that we will thrive together or we will fall together. That is the reality that we're facing. The more we can do things together, the more our people thrive. And ultimately, that is the goal of why we sit here. It should be the only goal of why we sit here. And hopefully we can further that effort along today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I could not agree more with all comments made. We're going to start off with item number 1, which is a presentation, or I'm sorry, 6th one, a presentation on the Center for Transportation Technology Excellence. And I don't know if we've got a staff report on this.
Madam
Do we have a
Chair?
staff report?
Madam Chair, is there going to be public comment?
Okay. Yeah, let's do.
It's up at the very top before call to order.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do public comment first? I'm going to give everyone 1 minute, recognizing that we're going to have a clock and all that, but we'll start with public comment. Do we have any names people want to talk on public comment? All right, well, I think, I don't know.
That made it
Yeah.
easy?
You guys did understand that this is the time for you to speak on items,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't think we've ever had a council meeting where the public didn't want to speak.
Yeah, I think
So-
there might be a little confusion. There are two versions of the agenda that I'm understanding are being circulated. One indicated public comment at the outset of the meeting.
Oh, okay, because
Another-
mine does not have it. On the script that I was given, it does not have it. It has presentations first, but neither here nor there. We can do whatever we want. So if there is no public comment, we will have public comment after, as well on the items for each item. Is that how you all do it?
I think it would be good to wait till the presentations are done.
That's
So,
fine.
so that way they have an idea of what we're talking about and then they can make their comments.
I think that makes sense. That makes total sense. Okay, so why don't we start with the Center for Transportation Technology Excellence, and I'm excited about this project. I want to thank both Palmdale and Lancaster and the Metropolitan Transit Authority, as well as the state and federal government for the work that they're doing on bringing this forward. It's an exciting opportunity, especially in the Antelope Valley. When it is completed, it will bring jobs to this area. So with that, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Jess Montes, Senior Executive Officer with Metro. And with me is Carly Catone,
Hey, Carly.
consultants who's helping us with this.
Okay.
Do we have a presentation?
They're loading it.
Pull your mic up, please.
We have thank you. Next slide, please.
You're controlling the slide.
Great, thank you. In August 2019, we had a summit with rail manufacturers, about 10 of them. And during the discussions, we discussed the challenges with delivering rail projects. And it was very, very informative. The first set are the challenges that they face. Limited access to testing, skilled workforce, access to vendors, research and development locations, et cetera. And these are significant. When you build a train, you want to make sure that it works. You need to operate it, run it under all conditions. And really the only place you can do that is at transit agencies' operations, their main line. But the main line is, the first priority is service. The second priority is maintenance. So at best, a rail manufacturer gets about 2 hours a night for testing. Or on a weekend, maybe up to 8 hours. As a result, testing the train can take easily 9 months to a year, which has a significant impact to schedule and cost of a project. Also, a trained and skilled workforce, these projects last easily 5 years, if not longer. And having a trained workforce to do everything from design, manufacturing, assembly, testing, inspections, quality assurance, et cetera, at this scale and these hundreds of people is also a challenge. The vendors, if you take a look at a heat map, the majority of the vendors who go into designing and supporting these projects, they're east of the Mississippi, or they're in Europe and Asia. We have numerous examples where we have an issue and they have to call Berlin or they have to call the Czech Republic to get the technical support that we need to resolve the issues. And also a lot of the technology that we're using on the trains is still in development. And so research and design facilities are needed to vet the designs. And going back to testing, it's not just on the track, it's also systems testing in order to make sure that they meet the environmental conditions. One of the challenges that we have is finding a climate room. We put the train inside a complete train, and we tested to the lowest and highest environmental conditions. When I was working on a Acela, we tested to -40 up to about 160 degrees. And those type of facilities are not readily available. Back when I was doing this, you count them on one hand and have fingers left over. And so we have multiple projects going on, it creates a huge bottleneck. And one of the things that came as a result of this conversation, and we realized it's not just, and these items are not just issues with train projects. It's also issues with emerging technologies, our zero emissions, the microgrids, autonomous vehicles. All these things are in our pipeline here in Southern California. And so as a result, we're looking at ways in which we can mitigate these challenges. And one of the ways is to develop a transportation center of excellence where we have these resources to help our region get what we need to expedite the delivery of these projects. When we took a look, I said, it's not just LA Metro, it's a regional issue. West of the Mississippi, in 2021, there were over 2,200 heavy duty transit buses ordered. 1,400 of those were zero emission buses, all these just west of the Mississippi. And as far as heavy rail vehicles, over 1,000 were ordered, again, west of the Mississippi. So our region does have a need for this type of facility. So when we take a look at what is our need, most of the deliveries that we have west of the Mississippi are light rail, heavy rail vehicles. To fully test it, we need a test track that can take us to above design speeds, operating speeds. So it's something that's 85 miles an hour. So we require an area of approximately 6 to 8 square miles. Capacity for climate room test, EMI testing, et cetera. And one of the things that we're looking at, if you go to Europe and Asia, you'll see that technology there is 5 to 10 years ahead of us. And one of the key reasons for that is because that's where the centers of engineering are located. So the vision that we have is that we'll use the test facilities to bringing the vendors here, manufacturers here to bring, hopefully it'll bring manufacturing, assembly work, and then that will drive them to create centers of engineering here, and then ultimately become a centers for innovation. When we started looking for sites, our first filter was what areas are available that can have the test track, 6 to 8 square miles. Let's talk a little bit about the economic impact. We estimate, using the economic multipliers that APTA has, this type of investment could have an $11.5 billion return over the next 20 years in our area. Most importantly, I'll go down to the bottom, potentially create over 100,000 direct and indirect jobs in the region. So during our first filter, we took a look at all areas in Los Angeles County for possible locations. These were the sites that we identified, again, in all of LA County. Most of them were in this area. We then applied another set of filters in addition to property size, access to the rail corridor, zoning, floodplains, et cetera. And we ultimately settled on this site as being the most viable. And this shows conceptually what it could look like with the test track. The test track is about just under 7 miles, but it can sustain speeds of up to 85 miles an hour. It has space for pretty much everything that we're looking for. A couple of manufacturing facilities, assembly facilities, not only for rail, but also for bus. And also has space for other research and developments for microgrids, autonomous bus operations, et cetera. So I'm going to turn it over to Carly now to discuss the next steps. Carly?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, Mayors, and Council members. Great to be here with you. As just said, we see this as just a tremendous opportunity to bring jobs, economic opportunity, and really solve some of the transportation issues that metro and transit industry is facing all across the Western United States. And there's a tremendous opportunity that we have right now to think about leveraging some federal funding to support this through an initiative of the Department of Commerce, through the Economic Development Agency that is interested in providing strategic development grants and designations for technology hubs across the United States. And we see the idea of co-locating manufacturing uses, testing facilities, space for R&D and incubation and training as really being that sort of perfect locus to be able to support those larger goals. And so we are actively working with your staff and have been really appreciative of the opportunity to do so, to set ourselves up to apply for this federal funding. But it really is an impetus to create a collaboration, obviously, that we see here today with all of your respective jurisdictions convening, but to also bring in other partners to think through a consortium that can help operationalize this vision. And we have a lot that's been done, a lot of vetting on potential sites. We understand what the vision is, but we have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing this to reality. We are really thrilled, just showed you the previous slide that showed the property. It's LAWA-owned property. We think that they would be a fantastic location to house this site. I'll just go back to that real quick so you can see. We needed a site that met all of the size requirements. It would be great to be able to work with another government entity. There's no development on the site, but it's huge. You know, we need about 220 acres to cover the site plan that you see before us. So we have a committed and interested partner in LAWA. They've signed on to support the grant application, but there's definitely lots of work to do in terms of getting through the pre-development process on this site. But we are here really today to ask for your support and continued engagement in a partnership to look at all of the different due diligence and pre-development activities that need to happen to make this vision a reality. So we have to work on developing a financial plan. We need to coordinate on land use issues. The site is actually located partially within the city and partially within unincorporated areas. So we have two great partners to collaborate with. We need to develop a specific governance model that could oversee the development, and lots of opportunities to partner on workforce development. And we have really been thrilled to be able to think about this in the context of a federal grant opportunity. We see this, as just said, about siting and bringing back manufacturing or expanding manufacturing opportunities in the area. And then there's also all of these spillover opportunities around communications technology, renewable energy technology, material science, where we think co-locating all of these uses could have such a tremendous impact. So we are focused on applying for both of these grants. The applications are due in mid-August, and we are thrilled to have been putting together a consortium of stakeholders, really local stakeholders and regional stakeholders that we think could help contribute to this vision. So this slide just shows you a few of the partners that we have engaged that have been actively interested in supporting the incoming members of our consortium, and really, I think, reflect the diversity of the region. You see all of the different industry types at the top of this slide. So we thank our colleagues that have been working on that. And just in terms of next steps, we really welcome the opportunity to more formally collaborate with your respective cities and the county. We think there's an opportunity to do so within a master cooperative agreement. I know Supervisor Barger initiated a motion at the recent Metro Board meeting to put that into motion, and we look forward to getting further into the details with your respective staffs to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that. I mean, I just have to say that this is an opportunity not only to create jobs in this region, but actually keep people up here. And it is an exciting opportunity. I mean, we've got some hurdles to get over, especially with the law allowing to go to the federal government to get approval to use it, to reuse it for what the purpose is. But when you think about the opportunity and the fact that I met with the Department of Commerce, and the Secretary of the Department of Commerce was very, very, very excited about it, because this is right in line with what they want, because it's about solving a situation with an industry that has a backlog right now and getting trains tested, and even subways as well, subway trains as well, which this one's going to have the unique ability. The only other place that does it is in Pueblo, Colorado. So, and then it's going to create manufacturing jobs as well as housing, building housing. So I want to thank you all for your presentation. I want to thank both cities for your partnership on this. We've got some hills to climb, but it's not insurmountable, because this is something that's being embraced by both the federal, state, and I hope the local as well. So with that, does anyone?
I'd like to make a comment. I think this is a great opportunity for the city of Palmdale, for our region, actually. We have some of the best workforce engineers out here to help with this project, some of the smartest people for the newest technology. And if I was a betting girl, but I'm not, but if I was, I would bet that everybody in this room has at least at one time been stuck behind a train trying to get somewhere. And what that means is that they're a real part of our lives here. And we want to make sure that they're the safest and the most environmentally friendly that we can create. We certainly don't want to have any situations like they have in Pennsylvania, where they contaminate the water or the ground. So having good braking systems, good technology, well-built equipment is very, very important. And I think Palmdale is the best place for that to happen. So I'm thrilled that this project is coming.
Good point.
Thank you. So I just wanted to special recognition to our supervisor for her leadership in bringing this project, making it even a possibility for our valley to realize. Thank you to Metro for all of the work that you've done. I realize that this is a presentation item, and so there's not necessarily an action item. But you mentioned that there are two funding opportunities that are coming up due in August. I would encourage you to bring them back to us with joint letters of support for both of those funding opportunities. I think I would hope that our entire our entire city council, at least on our end, I think it would be ready to sign a letter of support, and I would encourage you to bring that back.
Great. We would appreciate your role as active consortium members and are working with your team to facilitate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Every campaign for city council, certainly in Palmdale, and I believe the same is for Lancaster, we campaign on the issue of bringing jobs, well-paying, mortgage-paying, family-sustaining jobs. And it has been a struggle. We're doing great. I think the two cities working together are making that more possible now than ever before. But this is a great opportunity, as been pointed out. So the two cities will work together and make this come around, but along with the county, of course.
Yeah, and you're right, Richard. The more jobs that we have here in the Antelope Valley, the less people that are on the 14. And when you talk about campaigns, I think we've all mentioned 14 freeway in our campaigns, and this will help get people off that freeway if we can have jobs here. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, agreed. I'll let Mayor Paris.
So do we have a project manager to push this? Because if we don't, it's going to take years instead of months.
No, we do actually right here, and we are pushing hard. The next that's why we're applying for the grants in August, and that's why I went back and talked to the Department of Commerce as well as Department of Transportation.
Do we have a plan B if we don't get the grants?
There's always going to be a plan B, and it's going to come down to, it's going to be a P3, a public-private partnership, and the grants are the seed. But I know there is interest on the private sector. So plan B is doing like a request for qualifications and enter RFI. Go ahead.
Yeah, Supervisor Berger, you're absolutely right. This will not get done without leveraging private funds and making it a P3. I would just add that Metro has put significant resources to help support pre-development activities. And while we don't foresee this grant funding covering nearly the cost of pre-development, they've been a very strong leadership partner in helping to support covering some of these initial costs.
So when do we see the first train go around the track?
Well, when do you want to see the first train go around the track?
So
So realistically, I think we're looking 4 years out.
4 years?
4 years. I
That's
would
good
say
timing.
4 years out.
yeah, 2028, 2030 is probably
Yeah.
the earliest.
Yeah. I mean, that's realistically in order to build it, because it isn't even has to be tested and approved, because this is going to be test tracks to the mayor's point regarding new technology, and it's going to be state of the.
No, I think I remember when you first came up with the idea. This is totally your creation. Kind of thought you were a little nuts when you said it. But you're actually.
I learned from you.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. Okay.
The 4 years.
But I mean, to your point, Mayor Paris, we have to ride this hard. It's not just going to happen, and that's why I'm very happy to see Carly. I've worked with Carly when I was staff, and she is. You've got a good team member here, I would say, and she knows how to deal with DC as well. So I think that together we're going to bring it across the finish line, right?
No, absolutely. Just coincidentally, we received our first heavy rail part on Saturday night. It was delivered at about 8 o'clock p.m. Got offloaded. Both halves were offloaded by midnight. So things are moving forward. I wish we had this facility already because it would be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, you've got a good team. And what did you just say?
Mayor Bass.
Oh, so Mayor Bass is the chair of Metro, and Metro. I brought in a motion. Metro has endorsed this project, as our board has as well. So we've got Metro, which is why I think you all are moving full steam ahead, because the Metro board has taken a position in support. it benefits this region, it benefits the state. It benefits Western, especially side of the state, who right now are waiting a year to get their train. There's not enough capacity at Pueblo.
You might put together a group of influencers, call them advisors, but they're really influencers. So you have somebody to call every time you reach an obstacle. We found that to be very beneficial in getting these projects done.
Okay.
But just a suggestion.
Good suggestion.
Mayor Paris, one thing that we could do, I know that internally to our city, we are doing a needs assessment study around the Center for Transportation Excellence, because it's not just the project itself. The magnitude of this project will impact housing, impact our local infrastructure, and so forth. So we are working on sort of an assessment on what this magnitude of a project will have locally for our city. So maybe we could work jointly on the magnitude of its impact on the entire valley.
Sounds good. So we'll follow up on that, because I definitely want you all at the table throughout the entire process, so that we can advocate in not only Sacramento but also in DC. So with that, I want to thank you all for the presentation. Do we have public comment on this item? Has anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No public comment.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. Yay. All right. Now we're going to go on to item 6.2, which is care court. And I just want to start off talking. The care court is something that that Governor Newsom has been pushing very hard throughout the state of California. We were supposed to be in the second phase of rolling it out, but because of the size of the county, the governor was very anxious for us to get online sooner rather than later. And we are, and I've heard from people of the Antelope Valley concerned about whether or not they're going to have access to care court and how that's going to work. So I thought it'd be important for us to talk, because I am very cognizant of the fact that the Antelope Valley oftentimes is kind of an afterthought in some people's minds. And we have made sure that it's front and center to the point of where we have the urgent care right now, the mental health urgent care. We got a $43 million grant from the governor, which I want to publicly thank the governor for that $43 million grant to move forward with a facility on that property that's going to be beds and housing for mental health populations. So I'm very excited about that, but I think that speaks volumes to the state's commitment to invest in the Antelope Valley. So I'd like to introduce yourself and talk about the care court. Please.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hunt. I'm the Acting Senior Deputy over Reentry Programs at the Department of Mental Health with LA County. And I'm here tonight to talk with you all about care court, share a little bit about the general program in some broad sweeping terms, because I know we have a time limit and a packed agenda, but also just to make sure that I emphasize and share with everybody here about the ways that we want to make sure that Antelope Valley has equal access for their community in order to participate in care court and have their voices heard, even though the courthouse will actually be geographically not in the AV. Okay, so this is actually Superior Court's new logo for care court. So I get to use it here, and you may be seeing these things in any sort of information that's going to be presented from the courts related to care court. They will be having this insignia. I'm not going to go through all this. This is just a general overview of some of the things that we touch in a larger presentation. And my offer to all of you here is that I'm happy to, at another point in time, provide a much more detailed conversation about these things. But I just want to kind of overarch for everybody here that these are the things that we normally touch upon. And apparently NAMI filmed me, and it's on YouTube on the last iteration of a version of this. So wouldn't highly recommend that. Happy to do it in person so we can make it personal. This is care court is a civil court process. So what it's focusing on is really assisting individuals that have this one specific diagnostic group: schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. This is really not focusing on individuals that have mood disorders. This is not focusing on individuals with a sole substance use issue, but this is really focusing on individuals that are having a difficult time with their cognitive processing, understanding information, and being able to navigate the activities of daily living. So I know in earlier iterations, maybe this wasn't as clear, but this is one of the things I wanted to just emphasize is that this program has a very, very specific diagnostic group of individuals that it is trying to help. And by doing that, we're going to be providing services, resources, as the supervisor shared, and housing is a significant component of this as well, in addition to our other programs and aspects. We really want to focus on self-determination and civil liberties of the individuals, and this is a voluntary program. And I know that's often a point of frustration for some groups, but the fact is that this is something that will fit into our continuum and array of services that we provide at DMH. This is one piece of help. And so I want to emphasize that this is, again, is a piece of another voluntary process. Okay, I am not going to go over this in detail, but thank you to Jean Ho at the CEO's office. This is our visual representation of the workflow from the time that a petition is filed to the time that somebody would potentially graduate a year into this care court process. At the bottom, thank you for moving my picture, it makes it easier for the timeline reference, that you'll notice that at the bottom on the timeline, the courts have very strict, specific conditional statements set up because they want us to be accountable and they want us to make sure that we are not the reasons that services are not coming out to individuals in a rapid way. So this is a very tight timeline. There are very tight turnarounds. And so these are the things that our team will be working on to make sure that we are able to comply with these things. I am going to take away from this because I want to talk about and highlight 4 specific things that are applicable here, specifically for the AV. That as the previous slide referenced, the courthouse that will be housing these activities are in Norwalk. It's a distance, right? I know. And so the court has decided that they are going to have a few different things so that no matter where you are in the county, that you can have equal access to this process, not only as a potential petitioner or filer, but also for the respondents. So first thing is electronic filing will be possible. The second thing is that goes hand in hand with the electronic filing is the waiver of a $435 fee to file the petition. So we were actually the trendsetter statewide. LA County was going to waive the fee, and now everybody else is following in suit. And I believe it will actually be put into the legislation during a trailer bill, which is really great news. Anybody that meets the criteria to file that petition has the ability without a fee and can hopefully do it December 1. They will have the electronic piece up and active. The second piece of that is at the self-help centers, 10 of which across the county, 1 is here at AV. And so there will be help and support on site for family members or anyone to walk into the self-help center and receive support about the care court petition and the process. Not only are they can have that access in the self-help center, but they also can have the access on the phone. So those are really good resources as well. And then the courtroom, as I shared, it's in Norwalk. There will be 2 courtrooms assigned, and those will be currently they use letters B and Z, and then then I put letters afterwards. I apologize. The rest of it was there Monday through Friday. I should have spelled that out. So it is expected that there will be court hearings 5 days a week on each of those courtrooms. And then finally, the other piece that's tied to the self-help specifically for the AV, which I believe is beneficial, is that they are building out the potential for these remote private spaces. And so the concepts, I guess they're still selecting a vendor or narrowing it down. So they wouldn't tell me exactly, but they showed me pictures of it, the court administration. It looks really great. It has the opportunity for you to participate virtually via some sort of video component. And it's a private space where you and a few individuals, an attorney, friend, family, supporter, can actually be in that space and have a private opportunity to participate remotely. And the anticipation is that each of these will occur at the self-help centers at the respective courthouses. So that's a real big I think, positive thing to allow maximum participation in this process. As I said with the diagnostic category, this is also another piece of the exact criteria and who we're really focusing on to support with this program. Individuals that have a diagnosis or would meet the diagnosis criteria for schizophrenia. We're looking at working and focusing on adults. The key and one of the hallmarks for this is that we are looking at individuals that are not currently receiving any other type of voluntary care. So for example, somebody goes to the urgent care, they walk out, they don't want the services. Individuals who call our 24/7 hotline, individuals who don't follow through with one of our intake appointments at one of our clinics here or anywhere. We want to be able to make sure that those are the individuals we're trying to engage into voluntary treatment. And so that's the focus. It's not that somebody needs a higher level of care potentially, but these are individuals that are not receiving any type of ongoing voluntary care. We also have some caveats about the severity related to that these are individuals that are unlikely to survive safely without supervision, or that their situation is at a point where they are going to start to substantially deteriorate. And we want to be able to intervene and offer services before they would become eligible for something like a 5150 under the gravely disabled criteria. Lastly, we want to make sure that they would benefit from the plan and that they want to participate. And we know, as in some of our other programs, that maybe individuals will not be exactly open to it the first time they hear about it, but that's where our relentless engagement and hopefully charming clinicians and their personalities and our peers will be able to assist with that and really work with individuals to try to get them on board so that they are willing participants in this process. So who can petition? There are 12 groups of individuals that can petition. 4 buckets, if you want to call it that. One is the family home. So they may know the respondent from a family connection. They may live with that individual, may be related to that individual. The community is the next one. So this is where first responders, directors of hospitals, the licensed behavioral health professionals, or the directors of public and charitable organizations. And then finally, the county, behavioral health director, public guardian, or APS. In California, or specifically here in Los Angeles, we don't have groups that would be under the tribal jurisdiction affiliation, but we do have tribal affiliations in LA. So we may find that individuals have eligibility under this, but physically we do not have those 2 items here in LA County. The petition is a court document. It's still under judicial review. I believe it's being finalized and it'll be live September 1st when the other counties are going live. The key to this is that the petition needs to have one of 2 pieces of evidence. One is a declaration by a mental health professional, or the second is evidence that the individual needed some intensive treatment. And intensive treatment is defined as the 5250 hold, which is the 14-day hold. And the other component is that had to have happened 60 days or less, one of the incidents. Yeah. So we're really talking about individuals that are really struggling, having possibly multiple calls for law enforcement, calls for service, crisis teams, whatnot, that we want to be able to support with this program. We do have concerns, to be honest, about how individuals may, especially for the petitioner, if they're outside of certain groups, how they might have access to that knowledge, but we're working on those different things. And so that's where the different components all go into that first component of the workflow related to the filing of the petition. I already shared the things specifically for AV that are in the bottom. The care agreement will have 4 pieces. It'll have a behavioral health component. It'll have a recommendation and an opinion about medications and if medications would be appropriate to support this individual. It'll have housing resources and supports, and it'll also have discussions about social services and connections. Medications is one of the bones of contention with a lot of groups because they're like, are you going to forcibly medicate somebody? You said this was voluntary. And the answer is no one's going to be forced to do anything. Medications, oftentimes, because of the disability and the diagnostic group that we're talking about, it is known that medications would benefit and help individuals with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. So again, it's all about educating, informing, and again, you may have somebody that says, okay, fine, I agree to therapy, I agree to housing, I agree to the other services, I'm not taking meds. And okay, so that's where we'll start. There's a lot of money and resources focused on the care agreement and plans related to the bridge housing. So based on our population, we were allowed to apply for the $321 million. Supervisor Barger will be very proud to know that we applied for the entire $320 million. We did not leave a penny on the table, Supervisor, and we were given we were conditionally awarded it based on our plan in June. And so we are working with our partners at DPH and SAPC. 20% of the money will be going to SAPC to help expand beds for substance use and treatment, and then 80% will be with DMA. There's a few different categories where the money is going to be going. One of the things, because housing is a crunch and that I want to share, is that we're not looking that this is going to be building new housing. We're going to look to try to use some of the supports and resources that already exist. For example, a lot of family members in some of our other programs really want to keep their family member that's struggling with mental health in the community. They don't want to see that individual living by themselves in an isolated way. So they've talked with our teams about, okay, well, how can we be able to have our family member in the same home, in the same residence? So some of the money, specifically under the rental assistance and some of the other structures, will be able to support family if they were to, for example, need just a larger place or maybe help with the electric or the utility bill, for example, because having another person, especially one that maybe is afraid of the dark, because that's where a lot of the fears and concerns come from, just for example. So that money and that group of money can help support the families with those costs so that we're actually increasing the housing of that individual by keeping them in the community and with their family. So I just bring that one up. The other one is that we also are using some of the money in some of these groups because, for example, if there is some property damage, and then that can assist so that we can continue to build good relationships with landlords and allow those continued relationships to benefit not only one, but many other. I don't know the familiarity level of anybody in this room, honestly, related to assisted outpatient treatment. But assisted outpatient treatment is one of the other programs that is court related, but AOT actually has a few more mandates and arguably is a little more restrictive than care court. So not every county in the state has agreed to AOT. So care court is mandated for every county to be implementing. And so at a later time, we can go into the very specifics of the statute differences if that's something that would be of importance in conversation. And then the other big piece, and it's the part you can see because I used an exclamation point about it, is that care court is available statewide by a certain date. And the big hallmark of it is that your insurance plan does not matter. A lot of times families have struggled because they've had to make a choice. Do I keep my loved one on a managed care plan where I know they can access other resources? Or do I have them meet eligibility for a Medi-Cal program? Care court, it does not matter what that is. We are allowed to serve those that have managed care. And so we really feel that that opens up the best of all worlds for the community because they're going to be able to access this program no matter what their insurance is. And we will be billing the insurance on the back end, but we will be providing the services. And the insurance companies are going to find out that We have the best in LA County, and they'll be getting a bill. This is the final piece. Oh, cool. He's animated here. Is that they are animated? Is just wanted to talk about Care Court goes live December 1st for us as an early implementer. We're a few months later than the other counties that are rolling out this year. But as Dr. Wong and Connie Draxler have emphasized in other conversations and meetings, this is not the only program for support. You don't have to wait for Care Court to get care for your loved ones and your community now. And so while care will bring an important piece in our larger continuum, we just wanted to emphasize that there are many programs right now, all of which, excluding care, they're available right now in the county. And so we see this as a really important piece. We see this as an opportunity to lead and demonstrate to a large audience that we can help and support individuals in need. In one of the other opportunities that we had as DMH, we helped at the emergency intake site with the unaccompanied minors in Pomona. And the work that our DMH clinicians and teams did there actually became the national standard for the emergency intake sites. And the recommendations for trauma-informed care that we created here are now the standard. And so we use that as an inspiration to what Care Court could be. Because, okay, politics aside, it's here, it's happening. So do we want to lead? Do we want to be that trendsetter? As I believe the mayor said about maybe this is be a good opportunity, Mayor, for us to use influencers or consultants in ways. And, you know, we want to be able to show the rest of the state how it can be done. 1 out of 4 Californians lives in LA County. So we want to be able to help. And again, help is here. It doesn't have to wait until December.
Great. Can we get that, both cities a copy of the slide, that information on there, just so you can,
Absolutely.
that'd be great.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. And thank you for that presentation. I mean, I will just say for the record, this is uncharted waters. And quite frankly, when you look at it's voluntary, and I understand what you're saying about medication, but with this population, medication is a key part to compliance.
Absolutely.
So I think we're gonna learn a lot, and I think we're gonna have to change some of it where we can. Recognizing that the courts are gonna have ultimate authority over how we roll it out. But I'm hoping for the best. But I think we need to prepare to pivot on some of this, just based on what I've seen and how we've done it in the past. So with that, do I have any comments from anybody?
I just want to say that I think this is a great program. It's desperately needed. We desperately need it in the Antelope Valley. I would like to beg you to please put this in the Antelope Valley Courthouse for our residents here. The mental health system is not easy to maneuver, especially if you're mentally ill or you're trying to deal with a person that's mentally ill. We need to have facilitators somewhere, a group of them full time that can help families or groups or whomever get through this obstacle that we call mental health, because the system is very, very difficult. I also have a couple questions that maybe you can think about. You don't have to answer them today. With the money that is coming in for these projects, and we talk about keeping family united, but you may not want them actually in your house because they could be firebugs, they could be violent, they could be who knows what. Is there any thought put into helping them build the ADUs to help with housing, the accessory dwelling units? I think that would be very important for people that have mental health issues and have their own space, as opposed to being in a very chaotic home with dogs and animals and kids and that type of thing. So maybe we can find some funding to help with that. And the second comment that I have is a lot of people will be hesitant to call and do a petition because they don't want to be sued. I'm sitting up here with many attorneys, and they are probably the best to speak to this, but the person in good faith calls and files a petition because someone is needing some help. If they know that they can be sued later on for filing the petition, it's going to limit the people who will help. So is there any provision put in to protect people who actually file petitions so that they don't get sued?
Yeah.
Like I said, you don't have to answer that now if you don't.
Oh, no,
have an
no.
answer.
But just to address that briefly, I believe there is, and I am happy to send that actual statute to you because that was one of the concerns raised, and that does actually exist under the 50 Welfare and Institution Code for 5150. I believe it is under there and actually spelled out, but I will get it confirmed. The other thing is that based on the petition and the role, is that it's not that you're saying, for example, that there is a definitive diagnosis, but the petition is just asking what are the behaviors and what are the reasons that you believe that this individual would meet criteria for this program, as well as benefit from this program.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of people are not diagnosed officially.
exactly.
And that makes it
Absolutely.
very, very difficult. So
Right.
this is a great program. City of Palmdale welcomes it, and hopefully we can work with you in tangent to get this off the ground. I would love to meet with you one-on-one and have some conversations to make this happen. And again, I would love to have it come to the AV courthouse.
Yeah, and let me just say on that Department 95, which deals with all mental health evaluations and with the, I don't even know if they do the Reese hearings there, but they do the competency hearings. I think that is why they chose, they want to have one point of contact because of how specialized this is. Similar to Department 95, but I have heard loud and clear about the need to recognize the Antelope Valley. I think that's why they're doing the one of the things that we learned from COVID is that you can do it via, I'm sure you did when you were mayor or when you were in court during COVID, you would go and do it Zoom, whatever Teams or whatever it is. So we are looking at that, and I hear you loud and clear, but I think it's all to have it under one roof, similar to Department 95.
Thank you. I just wanted to, thank you for your presentation and all that you do to help this type of vulnerable population. Much needed work. I commend you for all that you do. To dovetail on the supervisor's comment, I think the e-filing and the opportunity for e-appearances are critical for the Antelope Valley. We're geographically remote, and particularly with those that are afflicted by mental health issues, for them to have to commute to Norwalk would be an impediment in and of itself, and would be a barrier to utilizing and accessing these resources. So those are huge. My question is sort of combined, dovetail off of Mayor Betancourt's question. How you noted that this is a voluntary program. You also noted that others, including relatives, can file a petition. How do you know, or how does this interplay with those that have a conservatorship in place?
Okay, good question. So the conservatorship is under a different process, and we're working with the courts right now to figure out that we see this as a way for individuals that may be currently conserved to be stepping down in levels of care, and as a way to potentially transition back into the community in a more independent way. And the legal concerns and the discussion points right now are relating to what needs to happen between the conservatorship process, where does that begin for care court, or where is the intersection? So we're actively working on that to figure that out. And the next piece, to refer back to the mayor's comment about and question about the ADUs, is that in that bridge housing money, that in order to use it for capital, we were only able to spend $75,000 per unit. And we had to be able to, from the time that we sign a contract, had to have the housing completed with construction in 365 days. And so the feeling was that as we want to make as many resources available as possible, that we still have money in that bucket with the construction of places in housing, but the majority of the money is going to go in other places because we felt that there would be much more of an impact to the need of the community. And so it's kind of a balance. Yeah. Of course.
Thank you. Any other comments? I look to my left, I look to my right.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
So I think it's a great step in the right direction, and I'm glad that Los Angeles County was finally admitted to this program. I have a concern, though, that it's going to be a relatively high threshold because of the type of disorders that it addresses, and that there's a narrow list of disorders that would actually be treated. So, for example, if there's a person that has been diagnosed as bipolar, but has not been committed to an involuntary hold, that's going to fall through the cracks, it seems to me. Am I right?
They would not be eligible for this program specifically, but our goal and focus and our directions from the top down, including the CEO herself, have been that we need to make sure that there is a very strong place and process for those that are not found eligible for this specific program. So
But it's important to
yes.
note that this was specific by the state.
Yes,
This was prescribed by the state to just specifically limit it to what you saw. So,
Right.
but you're right.
I understand that.
So
the-
yes,
What I've seen in families and in the courts are cases that don't quite reach that threshold, and yet families are struggling with it. The city of Palmdale has recognized that in its budget 2 years ago, adopted a $2.2 million to address this in a regional way, and we've been meeting with providers, including the County of Los Angeles. So I think it's a great step, but I think a lot of the mental issues and mental disorders that are out here are going to be missed by this program. So we have to figure something else out, because I understand there's other programs, but it's going to require a voluntariness on the part of the person that's suffering from mental disorder.
right.
And
However,
that's the problem, because
That-
oftentimes there's no recognition by the individual that they have a problem that needs to be addressed. And without that, then there's very little that can be done. And there's many, many families in this valley that are affected by that. The other thing is, Ms. Barger, is that many times when the sheriffs roll out to a call, because there's a family that is dealing with a particular problem like this, it's supposed to be assisted by the MET team. And oftentimes they are understaffed and unable to respond.
All the
And-
time. All the time.
So we think it's a huge problem in the city of Palmdale. I believe that Lancaster joins us in that, but we need to deal with this in a regional way, because it really does affect our residents in a particular way that is difficult. But thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, and I agree. And obviously, especially law enforcement, when you look at Met, when they come in contact, less than 1% ends up going to jail. The Met team is able to de-escalate and actually either refer for services or hospitalization. So I'm a big proponent of the Met team and expanding it. Unfortunately, we need to hire more deputies so that we can actually get the Met teams embedded, both on the clinical and on the law enforcement side. But I wholeheartedly agree with you, especially up here when I look at the number of calls that are coming in, and I follow county fire in terms of the response that they have. There's no question in my mind that we have to do something up here, and care court's not going to solve that problem. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to deal with long term, working with Sheriff Luna, but also working with Dr. Wolf. So, all right, yeah, go ahead.
How can you possibly sit there and say this is a program for the Antelope Valley if it's down in Normal? I mean, seriously, why waste our time? Imagine what it must be like to be schizophrenic with voices screaming in your head and somebody tells you you've got to go to Normal. Really?
you don't have to.
You don't have to.
We're going to come up here. We can help with,
Is the judge coming
Technology.
up here?
no, but our teams will.
A court is 3 people. It's a judge, it's a clerk, and it's a bailiff. There is no reason in the world they can't get in their car and drive up here once a month and use one of the empty courthouses we have over at our courthouse. You know, I grow really weary of LA coming up here and acting like they're doing something for us when we all know that they're not. And having a closet for people to come in and talk virtually to the court sounds good in theory, but trust me, it never, ever works. We are always waiting 30, 45 minutes for some technical difficulty to be solved. Tell these judges, if they want to be a judge, do their job. Get in their car, drive up here, and serve the people. Fair enough?
I will share that at my next administration meeting with the court.
And
Thank
Dr.
you.
Wong, Dr. Wong knows, and it is the courts. And Mayor Paris, I am going to ask both you and the city of Palmdale work with me to educate the courts. The courts are, as you know, a state agency, and Department 95, that's why I use that as an example, because even if you have to do a conservatorship right now, you have to be on Department 95, which is in LaSalle Park. Is it still in,
Norwalk.
oh, they moved it to Norwalk?
They moved it to Norwalk.
So we definitely, I hear you loud and clear, and nothing would make me happier, and that's why I actually put this on the agenda, because I was very aware of the fact that the Antelope Valley is a distance from Norwalk, and that's why they incorporated the ability to do it via Zoom or Teams or whatever it's going to be. But I agree, having a physical presence is something. So I will look to you and to work with me to educate the state.
And we will share that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to be the Debbie Downer in the room.
No,
but-
it's that's why I put this on the agenda. I think it's important to hear, because I'm hearing from residents in the Antelope Valley. My office up here has gotten called when they read the paper. It's like, what about us?
Right.
And that's why when we lobbied for the 43 million to expand services up here, specific to the Antelope Valley, I was thrilled that the state actually recognized that this is an underserved area that $43 million is going to. And I might add, I think it was 200 million overall, and 43 of it's coming to the Antelope, which is significant.
Good job.
Statewide,
Good job.
yeah. So it's significant, but I think it's volume, but we've got more work.
And my last point of clarification is schizophrenics are no more violent than the general population. And we oftentimes have a view that is just not, they're not dangerous. They just need our help.
And some of our other, like the Rapid Diversion Program, and the support of the MacArthur Foundation and the Safety Justice Initiatives have been demonstrating that with numbers. And hopefully we will have a larger audience that will see that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and good point. And thank you for saying that, Mayor. All right, with that, do we have any public comment on this item?
No speaker cards on this item.
All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. There's more work to be done, and believe me, this is going to be a work in progress. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for that. And then we'll get the slides to you all so that you have them. And then we'll set up a meeting that you want, a follow-up meeting on that. We'll do that. All right, now we're going to move on to joint new business. We're going to start with the first one, the Antelope Valley Fair Multi-Agency Regional Resiliency Center and Palmdale Regional Recreation Center. I know this is an action item, and I don't know if who would like to speak first. Which city?
Madam Chair, before we move into actual discussion, I would like to recuse myself from this item. And I
Okay.
believe that
Yeah, myself as well.
Okay, so I've got, you all are going to recuse yourself?
Yes.
we'll exit this way.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Going to recuse myself in an abundance of caution as advised by our city attorney for having done business.
All right, all right. So now what we will do is, this is a recommendation, City of Palmdale to identify and appropriate 10 million for the MARRC facility and reaffirm the commitment, as well as City of Lancaster acknowledges is contractor for design services amount of 6.5 and reaffirm its commitment. So with that, I don't know if Mayor Betancourt, if you would like to make any comments on this?
Does my council want to make any comments on this before we call for a motion?
Wasn't there going to be a presentation by the fair?
Is there going to be a presentation? If there is, who's going to present? All right, we're going to make it a little tight, all right?
You gotta get.
But I mean, just because I think we all,
Okay, we actually have two parts. I'll be speaking on the MARC, and then the City of Palmdale will be speaking on the Regional Recreation Center. Okay. Good evening, Supervisor, Mayors, and Council. I'm Marisa Diaz, the City of Lancaster Public Works Director. One thing we know is we all agree on the regional importance of the Multi-Agency Regional Resiliency Center, or MARC. It all started at our special joint council meeting chaired by the supervisor in 2021. The city agreed this is one of the highest priorities of the Valley, and Lancaster entered into a memorandum of understanding to make it happen. In March 2022, the California Construction Authority, on behalf of the 50th District Agricultural Association, issued a request for proposals for architectural consulting services. This kicked off the design phase of the project. In April of 2022, all of the project partners, including the fair, the supervisor, Lancaster, Palmdale, and our first responders at the Sheriff's Department and Fire Department, came together to show our need and priority to Deputy Secretary Michael Flores of the California Department of Food and Agriculture to request state funding. As a group, we explained our geographic isolation and the absolute need to be 100% self-sufficient during a disaster. There is no facility of the size and magnitude needed to facilitate first responder support and accommodate evacuees in the event of a major catastrophe like the proposed buildings at the Mark. Through those efforts, we were recently awarded $20.5 million for the project from the state. Since that meeting, the Deputy Secretary Flores, we have been busy working with all stakeholders to complete the 30% and move the project to final design. In selecting the location, we needed to find a place with as many of the amenities needed to quickly respond to any disaster situation inflicted on the greater Antelope Valley. At the fairgrounds, we can expand on and take advantage of all the existing infrastructure already in place. It is the ideal location for a regional evacuation center and regional emergency command center. An added benefit to the location is that the proposed building will not sit as an empty, useless shell. This building will be able to serve dual purposes as an evacuation center and an event center. We call it E-Squared. E-Squared will be a 140,000 square foot building that can accommodate a multitude of uses and include several flex spaces that allow for very small and very large events and will allow us the flexibility to appropriately size our response to any hazard. The center will include the main event space, 2 lobbies that can be sectioned off for smaller events, multiple breakout rooms, restrooms, locker rooms with showers, and a kitchen. The space will be able to accommodate 32 pickleball courts, 8 basketball courts, 16 volleyball courts, and will be able to host a multitude of events, such as concerts, graduations, conventions, other sporting events, and tournaments. But most importantly, the space will be able to provide shelter for 1,000 evacuees. As part of the needs assessment and working closely with our first responders, it became clear that our command center should be separated from where we plan to house evacuees. The EOC building is approximately 26,000 square feet. It includes an auditorium, the Emergency Operations Center, our conference rooms, offices, and some restrooms. So far, the needs assessment has been completed. 2 buildings are currently in design. 30% design has been completed, and in September, we expect to be at 60%. In anticipation of the proposed project and in support of the ongoing MARC upgrades for resiliency and sustainability, the City of Lancaster and the Fairgrounds have already partnered on the installation of 2 repeaters that will expand communication capabilities and ensure coverage across the site. Together, the City of Lancaster and the Fairgrounds have also partnered to provide shared mobile outdoor lighting equipment that can be easily relocated as needed and as best suits any response. Solar, battery, and hydrogen energy systems planned as part of the MARC master plan are the ideal off-grid solutions with the least impact to the environment. The MARC has maintained its solar system for many years and has the bandwidth and space to accommodate a battery connection, hydrogen fueling station, and hydrogen storage energy center that will not only provide energy for the new building, but the entire campus. The City of Lancaster has already committed over $6 million to complete the design of the evacuation center building and the EOC building. Construction is currently estimated at $70 to $90 million. And in addition to what the city and fairgrounds have already committed to, Palmdale has committed to contributing, the county has committed to contributing, the state has committed $20.5 million, Lancaster has committed to additional funding, and we're in pursuit of several grants, earmarks, and additional one-time funding opportunities to close that gap. The goal is to fully secure funding prior to construction advertisement. We're scheduled to advertise for construction in March of 2024, with construction completing in 2025 prior to the 2025 Fair. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the City of Palmdale.
Thank you for your presentation. The design that I'm looking at today is far different than it was in the past. And I just want to make that clear. Never in my entire life would I have thought pickleball would be something that we would spend money on, in Lancaster. And I think Lynn behind you wants to speak, so I'll shut up, Lynn, and let you speak.
Supervisor, Mayor, Council members. My name is Lynn Glidden. I am the Director of Public Works for the City of Palmdale. My review is a little bit less, and it should be fairly quick. In summer 21, the City of Palmdale released an RFQ for consultants to go and do a feasibility study for the Palmdale Recreation Center. After receiving 16 packages, we reviewed them all and we picked Barker Rinker CCAT Architectural. They are out of Colorado. This was the first phase of this project, and that resulted in 3 potential site locations, a conceptual design, and a project pro forma analysis that incorporated current industrial trends and captures the interests and desires of the community. Along with an executive steering committee, which was city staff, we had a quality of life committee that comprised of key stakeholders, not limited to AV Union High School, Plant 42, Palmdale Aerospace Academy, and AV Boys and Girls Club, and other key business owners. And we met with BRS to begin the outreach process for that project. Through October 21 to May 22, the above team held local workshops, surveys, processed and analyzed several iterations of plans. And from that, we are showing a conceptual plan of what it may look like. This is about 113,000 square foot facility, 3-story facility. There's the inside of that. I'll get 3 stories up. There you go. That would house a gymnasium, multi-court, multi-purpose room, catering kitchen, indoor recreation swimming pool area, a tech arena, which we are looking at robotics and or e-gaming, walking, jogging track. And all this is on a 40 to 59 acre site, which could also house 8 pickleball courts, 4 tennis courts, basketball courts, and other future expansion. There's your 3rd level. So along that, you have 3 potential locations. This is the first site 1, and this is in no order. Rancho Vista Boulevard and Division Street. This is the southwest corner of that intersection. Site 2 is north of Palmdale Boulevard along Division Street. And site 3 is south of Palmdale Boulevard along Division Street. The probable projection estimates for this project is about 102 to 110 million. And this is escalated out to March of 25 right now. Our next steps are either to determine the funding availability, select the location of the project, and then go into the entitlement process. And with that, that's my end of my presentation.
Thank you for that. So I'm looking, and y'all do it a little different up here. I'm supposed to ask for a motion in a second, and then we're going to ask for discussion by both councils as well as public comment. So do I have a motion?
Yes, on behalf of the City of Palmdale, I would move that we appropriate an additional $7.5 million in addition to the 2.5 that's already been allocated. The money has already been paid to the Antelope Valley Fair for the Palmdale contribution to the development of the MARC facility, and to reaffirm the commitment by the City of Palmdale for the development of the center that will serve residents of the City of Palmdale, as well as the entire Antelope Valley, in times of emergencies that it says here may happen. To me, it's not just may happen, but will happen. We've seen that. So that's my motion.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Well, before I can second that motion, can we have the discussion?
It's backwards from what we normally do.
Yeah,
We normally
it's on here. That's what I thought, but on here it says the scripts. I don't know if that's the way y'all do it up here. Either way.
Okay.
Discussion.
Because
okay.
I just want to, do you mind?
No.
Okay.
I'm
I
good.
just want to make sure that Lancaster's okay with it. It says $10 million for the mark. When previous joint council meeting, when the MOU was established, there was 2.5 allocated from our 22-23 budget. So are you willing to accept that as payment towards the 10 million and approve 7.5 for the remainder? Also, you know, I represent the far east side of Palmdale, so I want to make sure that I'm addressing the concerns of the east side residents. And one of the things that I'm hearing is that if there's a disaster or an emergency, it would be hard for those residents to make it to that event center. Is there anything we can do throughout this process to order extra supplies or create a sub emergency shelter, maybe at Oasis or somewhere on the east side, if that was an actual occurrence to take place? For me, as a resident on the east side, I remember the Bobcat fire and those flames and smokes approaching my house, and we had nowhere to go. And so if this were to exist, even in Lancaster, that's still somewhere to go. So I support this because I've lived through that. But I just want to make sure that if it was an earthquake or something else, that those east side residents are taken care of. Also, when the fair director, Dan Jacobs, spoke before our Palmdale council meeting, we put a contingent that we would receive a seat on the fair board. Before I second your motion, I want to make sure that this is accepted under that contingent that we actually receive that seat. So with those comments, and if all of that is agreed to, I'd be happy to second the motion.
Okay, let me
Vice Mayor.
walk you through it a little bit. Originally, it was $12.5 million to do it. That's when we originally talked about the whole thing, because you're not just getting a say-so on the Mark building, you're getting a say-so of the entire the fairgrounds. So what we are looking for is, and it was part of our planning, is to bring Palmdale into, and it's our concern, not our concern, but our wishes that Palmdale will participate as much as possible. So yes, to the 7.5, you can add that to the 2.5 for 10. And yes, and you need to be real careful when you say a seat on the fair board, because there's 4 boards on the fair board. So it is a seat on the JPA, which will also be afforded to the county. So we will expand the JPA, and the city of Lancaster has voted to do that already. The fairgrounds has voted to do that already. And as chairman of the JPA has given me the authority to sign off on that or to do that. So originally it was 12 billion. We want your participation. We want your participation, not just for your money, but for the participation of Palmdale, because we need it as a region to work together.
One more question, sorry. So when it is not an emergency shelter, it's an event center, and it looks like recreation center, would we participate in profits if there are any?
Yes, you can participate in all the profits.
Okay.
So I didn't know that we were going to do discussions now. So since we changed the rules while we were here.
Has the second been made?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
I think
second.
that's a second, as long as
You
you're
need
agreeing to
that
his
from
term.
our side before we have
Okay, go ahead.
discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
You need that from our side, a motion in a second, before the
motion.
discussion.
You have a motion, go ahead.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
All right,
No, I
now
will entertain a
discussion.
motion.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, good. Now, let's have the
Okay.
discussion.
The mayor of Palmdale was asking.
I guess my concern was that I saw that we're only going to be able to evacuate 1,000 people between both cities. We have over 300,000 people. And so that would basically be 500 people from each city. I, along with Council Member Olson, live on the extreme east side. How do we make sure that those 500 spots are left open for Palmdale residents? Because it will take us some time to get there.
Well, it won't be split down the middle, first of all. It'll be split with the county, and it'll be split with AV residents. So that's the way they'll
So
look at
if
it.
I got there, you could actually say, I'm sorry, we're full?
Let me finish.
Okay.
So the county will have theirs. It can be full before a single Lancaster resident gets there. I'll just give you an example. During the Bobcat fire, which you brought up, it was a lot of people were evacuated to the fairgrounds, and that's on the far east side. You say that's your concern, but there was a lot of animals that were sent to the fairground, and it's been used as an evacuation center. This will be able to house over 1,000. So that's a lot different than there's our other buildings that are there. We have probably an additional 100,000 square feet of buildings that are there. We have the Hunter Center, we have the Van Dam Center, we have the Harley Davidson rooms. We'll have, with this, we will have a cooking facility, which we will share with everybody. And so it's made to be for the entire Antelope Valley. It's not made to be just for Lancaster. It's not just for Lancaster. I'll remind everybody, it's state property.
I guess my concern is this. You're asking us to kick in $10 million for evacuations. This is the way it was sold to us. This is an evacuation center, an emergency center. If we're getting $10 million, that should secure some beds for Palmdale residents. And now you're telling me that may not be the case.
No,
Let me answer. Whenever you have an emergent situation like what we're talking about, you're going to triage people. You're going to triage them in who needs the care the most. Children first, older people second. I don't know that anybody's going to be taking IDs. The purpose of this, however, is different than just a building to put people in. When we have an earthquake, we are going to lose power for God knows how long. We're going to lose water for God knows how long. It is not going to be something that gets fixed in a week. It's going to be quite a while. You're going to have people going through this evacuation center on a daily basis based upon what their needs are. You know, what will really happen is if you can't shower, you move. That's what happens. We could lose half of our population in a month. This is a beginning of being able to address that. The value of this particular building will be we can be off the grid. We will have water that we can pump with the hydrogen fuel cells that power it. It is totally independent of, it's sort of like an air computer, I guess you could say. It's independent, all of it. I would like to say we're going to have somebody at the door checking IDs. We're not. We're going to be taking care of people who need our services to survive. People who are hurt, people who are, I mean, I could go on and on. And that's the reality of it. We either get ready or we don't. If we don't, none of us, you know, we might be lucky. We might all be gone and somebody else has to take the heat. But make no mistake, it will be our lack of decision making that results in people dying if we don't become more resilient than we are today. That's
Maybe I recognize. First of all, I'd like to say that the San Andreas Fault is Palmdale centric. It runs very, very close to the city of Palmdale and many of the residents here. The Northridge earthquake in 1994 cut off transportation between the Antelope Valley and Los Angeles, basically, for a long time. The county came to the rescue in bringing the Metrolink out here in pretty fast order so that we could have some communication. Otherwise, you either had to go over the mountains or in some other way. So if the San Andreas has an incident, which, you know, it's already overdue, frankly, it's going to affect Palmdale much more severely, much more directly than even Lancaster, simply because we're so close to the fault. Now, when we talk about access from East Palmdale or any part of Antelope Valley, really, what is the access to Los Angeles in such an event for people in East Palmdale or Little Rock or Lake LA? It'll be much easier, and sort of piggybacking on what Mayor Paris said, with the triaging. If someone's house has collapsed and they're completely homeless because of an earthquake or some other such incident, they're going to have priority over someone who perhaps has had some damage to the house, but is still livable. So I think what we're talking about is being prepared for incidents that are going to affect thousands of people, including, obviously. If we get cut off from LA because the bridges on the 14 collapse, as they have in the past, then the residents of East Palmdale and the residents of West Palmdale and the residents of Lancaster and everywhere else in Antelope Valley will have no access to whatever facilities are available to an area that's already impacted hugely by homeless. So that's why I think it's really, really important to look at this in a regional way. The state of California has stepped up. The groundbreaking will be taking place in relatively a few months. And this thing is going to get built. I think Palmdale should be a part of it, and we should partner with the city of Lancaster, the AV Fair, the state of California, and I hope LA County. Thank you.
If I might, over here, the lawyer table.
Oh, I was like, where are you? Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like the kids' table at Thanksgiving. So
Yeah, I know, really.
we're over here. The exchange has been very insightful and very helpful. And I would like to address the Palmdale Council particularly. There is always devil in the details. We know that intimately. The big question of participation certainly is something you can go through and decide now. You've heard some eloquent speeches as to the benefits. What I'm concerned about is, again, those devils, those details. The recommendation of identify an appropriate 10 million, which we're hearing is an aggregate of the 2.5 and a 7.5. That, I think, needs separate later discussion by the Palmdale Council. What funds it's coming from, what you're appropriating it for, what terms, when's it used, is it conditional like we have on the 2.5 with the JPA board and ARPA confirmation. So I don't think you're really in a position to, if identify an appropriate tonight or today means specificity, I don't think we're there. I think we need to separately step back, look at those details, look at those economics, look at any conditions. But like the other items, you can certainly direct us that you want to participate in this resource for the community. Come up even with acceptance standards. I don't know what else to call them, talking about the east side and that. But if you do want to proceed, I impose on you kind of an obligation to start identifying sources of funds and any terms and conditions you'd want to put on them. Shooting from the hip is difficult and such a critical, major thing. So perhaps, again, give the direction to commit with us going back separately, figuring out those devils in the details, and then presenting them back to the city of Lancaster and the JPA and whoever else needs to participate in it. Again, this discussion has kind of raised these details. I don't want us to get too vague in a $10 million fund. And with that, the children's table is done.
I would like to address some of that. First of all, we had a joint meeting between the two cities 2 years ago. COVID interrupted any possibility for having another meeting. What we're looking for is regional addressing of issues and problems that affect the entire Antelope Valley, our two cities, and the county of Los Angeles. This is not shooting from the hip. This has been a dialogue and a discussion that's been going on now for quite a while. The $2.5 million was already allocated. It was a memorandum of agreement that was signed by the city of Palmdale and the Antelope Valley Fair. So I believe the action that needs to be taken today, because we are in fact meeting together, the two cities here, in cooperation. I believe that we've had several discussions with our city manager in terms of finding the funding and allocating it over a period of time, which would be, if this is adopted, about $1.5 million per year for 5 years to go towards this. So this is not a shooting from the hip. This is something that's been considered and deliberated for quite a while. And it's time to take action.
So understanding that, your notice there of 1.5 for 5 years, again, is a detail I didn't know, I don't think the finance staff. That's why I'm saying, if you have thoughts, the big picture is excellent. Staff's gonna need direction. So if we know it's 1.5 for 5 years, again, if there's any other terms and conditions, we just need to fill in the missing parts of identify and appropriate. You've started that there. So knowing this is something staff can run with. City manager may certainly know a lot more details than I do. And the lawyer's paranoia of leaving loose ends kicks in with me. So if you know details, put them in. If not, we will certainly figure them out along the way. But shooting from the hip was not to the big picture, it's to these implementation.
Yeah, we can take care of that tonight because we made the motion based on the terms that we all agreed to. And then we'll just add to that we are asking our city manager to work out and define the terms.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Now we're discussing. Do you have any more discussion?
No, let's vote.
Did you do a second? I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, we're gonna do public comment, but I just want to make sure the discussion. Do you want to say it?
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay, now we will do public comment. Do we have anyone who signed up for public comment?
Kathy McLaren.
Would you call several so they can make their way forward?
Michael Ross. Marcia.
We're still on. Good afternoon, supervisor, mayors, and our city council people. This is very important for the cities to move forward with this mutually beneficial multi-use facility. The benefits to the residents of both cities for recreation and emergency preparedness are great. As a Palmdale resident, a representative for IBW NECA LMCC.
30 seconds.
and as a Los Angeles County Building Trades and Construction worker, I ask for your support for the joint funding outlined for both cities. Thank you.
Thank you. We're doing 1 minute. I announced in the beginning, we're doing 1 minute for public comment. I'm sorry, I announced it in the beginning. We're doing 1 minute. You're on, sir.
My name is Michael Ross. I'm one of the members of the Palmdale Freedom Coalition. We stand adamantly against this idea. We love the idea of having the facility, but I absolutely agree with our attorney. I think we're coming off in the wrong direction. Have we considered other facilities or other uses of facilities within the city, like high school, gymnasiums, and stuff like that for evacuation centers? By 2027, our city is going to have a deficit in its budget, according to the 15th page of our funding projections. I think that those are things that really have to be taken serious. And I got to tell you, Councilman Loa, you're my councilman. If you go for this, I will do everything I can to make sure that you're no longer my councilman. I'm tired of the regionalism. We're tired of it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Marcia. Palmdale residents took it upon themselves to create 2 recreational centers to use as emergency backup areas 25 years ago. They also took it upon themselves to build an event center in their city. They reap the benefits of that event center in their city. People come, they enjoy, they shop in our area, and they eat in our area. We won't reap anything from Lancasters.
Thank you. Do we have more speakers? Can you call, please?
Daylene Davidson, Proud Patriot, Mario Presents, and Abraham Salcedo.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All due respect, this is ridiculous. Yes, an emergency situation with a fire, that's great. When it comes to an earthquake, it is a terrible idea. Lancaster is talking about putting it in Palmdale. How does that help the residents in Lancaster? If we're going to have an emergency evacuation, there should be one in Palmdale, one in Lancaster. There are too many people out here to try and combine this. And you didn't even put it in the middle for people to get to. And you're doing this with how much? $32 million, and you're waiting for how much more? This is ridiculous. It doesn't benefit the residents at all. By the way, we have sat here respectfully and listened to everything you had to say, and you took our 3 minutes and you cut it down to 1. It is our First Amendment right to actually be able to be heard. And 1 minute is not enough time to do that. Shame.
Thank you. Next speaker.
You could take that 1 minute nonsense back to LA. We really don't approve of your nonsense. It's funny, Rex, you're weary of the county coming up here, then why are we here? Why are we here discussing all this if you're wary of it with the last thing that was on the agenda? I'm more weary of Rex coming to Palmdale. If AV Fair got $20.5 million, why are we even considering $10 million from Palmdale? You have schools, gymnasiums, the mall.
30 seconds.
Marcia just stated that we have other facilities in Palmdale's. $10.5 million could have bought a ton of cots. We could have thought about this a lot better. Paris has nothing to worry about as he is located in Laguna Beach. Be prepared for thousands of residents, you're stating. However, the facility can only hold 1,000. You guys need to do better. And Catherine, you're going against your own flag ordinance because the POW flag is not being flown 6 days a year as it states in your ordinance.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our cities should absolutely work together. I wholeheartedly believe that. I don't believe that Lancaster's intentions surrounding the emergency use facility are to the benefit of Palmdale. In fact, it feels like a backdoor attempt at embezzling our hard-earned tax dollars. Of the proposed locations, none of them are near Lancaster, yet if the facility was in Lancaster, the inverse would be true. An emergency facility of this magnitude deserves to be near the border of our two cities, especially if this is intended to be a joint project. We don't build a pool in the neighbor's yard so we can walk into their home. The new fairgrounds, Jewel of Lancaster, is removed from any city center, and our yearly festival now hosts outside vendors that take our hard-earned dollars with them when they leave, but they'll come back next year. The commercialization of the Alfalfa Festival is most notable when the AV Board Authority members and trustees also get appointed to city commissions in Lancaster. This is not okay. This is nepotism, this is cronyism, and this is not okay. We do not want this put in either one of those locations. We need a central location for everyone because this is being rushed through. Absolutely not. And we will recall you if you vote for it.
Thank you. We have more speakers? Can you read names while we have him coming up, please? Are there more?
The last one was Abraham Salcedo.
Okay,
For this
welcome.
item.
I just want to speak on this
Hold the
item
mic up.
because I'm a resident of Palmdale. And for me, it's kind of concerning seeing that Palmdale's putting in $10 million. Lancaster only puts in 6.5. Lancaster is a more heavily populated area than Palmdale is. So why are we forking up more of the money? As far as who's going to be controlling the money, what are the details to a lot of this? I kind of agree with our city attorney as far as figuring out what is our cost
30
and what's our
seconds.
return, our investment when it comes to this. They bring up the whole thing with the emergency and the site and how if there's an earthquake, water and electricity is not going to be available, but yet we're going to have hydrogen and this building's still going to be up. It's like, I think some of the concepts and some of the things you guys are talking about are preposterous and you really need to think about it before you vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers signed up on this item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so now we will have additional joint council discussion. Any comments?
I'll call for the vote.
All right.
Are we voting separately or all together?
I think we're going to do roll call straight
Yeah,
down the
we'll
line.
do roll call.
Unless there's an alternate motion to postpone this or table the item, we'll move forward with the motion in the second that we have.
Mayor Bettencourt,
No.
Council members Loa
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
So, okay.
You know, you're in Lancaster now, and you will either behave like you are in a public meeting or we will have you removed.
So,
All right?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry. Okay, wait.
I want him out of here now.
Let's get on back
Adjourn the
on.
meeting.
Let me, please. So the motion failed on the Palmdale side. So as a
No,
lawyer-
the motion
It
passed.
Oh, I'm sorry. The other two. were-
It's 2-1.
2-1, majority of a quorum,
I
you're
stand
good.
corrected. So now we'll take a vote on the Lancaster side. Sorry, I was thinking the two that weren't here.
City Council members Doris,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Christ,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right, with that,
And you can recall me
So-
anytime you want. I'd be
Such a
happy to
good
do
order.
something else.
all right. All right.
Catherine, before we move on, can we know that you have a hard stop at 6:00?
Correct.
Can we choose someone
Yes.
from the audience to continue in your place?
I would, yes.
I would suggest like Drew Mercy, Charlie
Where is
Hughes,
Drew?
or Gus Camacho. Either one of those okay with you, Laura?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's up to you all.
Can we do a
apologize. We're back
potty break?
downtown at
Yeah,
7.
is Drew okay?
So
I'm fine with whomever
who do
you
we
all
have?
select.
Can do it as a. Who wants to do it?
No, I'm fine. Huh. All right, but I've got 10 more minutes. So you can
Okay,
give me that quick.
come on up.
All right, but thank you. And again, I apologize for having to be back downtown tonight. But let's move on. To do animal care and control is the next item up for discussion. And this is a review and consider options to mitigate the cost of animal care and control services through programs, engage local rescues, feasibility study options for alternatives.
Good evening, Supervisor, mayors, and council. The cities of Palmdale and Lancaster both contract with the County of Los Angeles Department of Animal Care and Control to provide general animal care and control services within their corporate limit. Both cities. The cities are billed based on the service level provided within parameters of the annual service level request form. And the rates of costs have been increasing steadily. Ultimately increasing, such as the flat rate for the kennel services. That's going to increase up to 10 days, which started at a 5-day flat rate fee, which is currently at a 7-day fee. In 2021-22, Palmdale's estimated cost of animal control services was $978,330 with fees collected of $219,499 for a net cost of $758,831. The actual net cost for 21-22 is $846,077. In 22-23, we anticipate a net cost of $1,306,900. In 23-24, we are anticipating $1.7 million for the net. So it's continuing to go up. Lancaster has increased at a similar rate. And Rod Armelin, Director of Public Safety of Lancaster, will talk about Lancaster's. I don't know if I introduced myself. I think I just got started, so I apologize. Sophia Reyes, I'm the Director of Neighborhood Service. Sorry, I was ready to go. Rod, you want to speak about your costs?
Good evening, council members, mayor, and supervisor. Good to see you all. So for the city of Lancaster, our estimated cost for animal control services for 21-22 was $1,083,987 with fees collected of $201,637. The actual cost for 21-22 was actually $1,347,098. When we prepared this report, we didn't have our actual costs for 22-23, and we have those figures now. So I'd like to give you that. So our actual cost without fees removed for 22-23 was $1,916,857. That constitutes a 42% increase. Our projected costs for 23-24 is $2.4 million, and that projects a 26% increase. So the fees are going up substantially. In fact, one in particular that I'd like for you to know about is their kennel housing fee, which is going up $146 per unit, which is a 40% increase from the previous year of $368.46. I'll bring Sophia back to close for us.
And 22-23, the county's overall cost increase with changes in billing rates. That will be 11% less than the anticipated step-up plan schedule, but with the differences in costs, they're still substantially increasing. Per capita for full service cities is at 72%, and it will go up again. Over the course of the past several years, the two cities have actively been discussing solutions for the cost of animal control services. Palmdale implemented a low-cost spay-neuter program in partnership with Karma Rescue. Over 1,000 pets and feral cats have received services. New strategies have been developed to include engaging local rescues, the Four-Legged Friday social media campaign, and Palmdale offering additional incentives for adoptions. County outreach events are featured on the city's social media platforms. Animal control has come to our events, such as National Night Out on July 25th, and they'll be at our movie night in August 18th. Lancaster has also partnered with Spay for LA to provide low-cost spay neuter services to residents of Lancaster. And they've promoted the adoption of dogs and cats from LA County Animal Care and Control at their neighborhood watch meetings and at the farmers market on the first Thursday of every month. The city of Palmdale currently has an agreement with Animal Arts Design Studios for a feasibility study. And that's to conduct whether animal shelter and animal services feasibility and providing its own animal care services, but also exploring the pros and cons of entering into a cooperative agreement for the region, looking at other programs, just looking at what are the options available to both our city to help mitigate the costs of animal control. The study is anticipated to be completed in November 2023, and we are having community meetings on August 3rd. The cities will continue to explore programs and options to reduce the cost of animal control and care and control. And when the study is feasibility study is completed, we'll review the findings and we'll meet with our council to discuss the option. Staff is available if there's questions.
With that, I'll make a motion that the city of Lancaster look at the results of those studies and form a JPA with the city of Palmdale with any results that they have from that.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion from Lancaster. Do I have a motion? And then we're going to have a discussion.
I'll make that motion on behalf of the city of Palm.
Sorry, can you just reiterate what your motion was? We don't have a motion set forth in our documentation. So
My motion is to review.
The recommendation is to review and consider options to mitigate the cost of animal care and control services.
Right. But
the programs engage.
you mentioned a JPA.
Up and including forming a JPA if it includes it.
That's not on here, so that would be something that you would add to the motion.
Yes.
To also expand looking at a JPA.
Is that okay with you for your motion, with the JPA? Who motioned it? You made the motion, Mr. Lowe.
I made the motion, yes.
Yes, okay. So you're okay with the JPA? So
Well, I mean, it's
consideration of, we're not taking action on it.
we're just talking about
Correct.
coming together and
Right.
I want to make sure that you were clear on the motion.
Right. I mean, it's, as Mayor Paris said a little while ago, oftentimes there's burdens placed on the Antelope Valley by the realities of Los Angeles County that makes services provided to this region oftentimes lacking, oftentimes just not there, and with ever increasing.
We're going to have a
cost of the
discussion in just a minute.
Yeah, we can have a discussion.
So I have your
on that.
motion. Do I have a second? I'll make the second. We have a motion and a second from Palmdale.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's have discussion.
Now we can discuss.
I'm gonna open it up though, because, you know, I will say that even before I was elected, we built the state-of-the-art animal care and control center up in Palmdale. Lancaster clearly needs to have a new one as well. The auditor controller verifies the amount of money that we charge. I feel we've got a lot of work to do. I know I've gone up to Castaic and to Lancaster's and to Palmdale's. And I know that we have committed staff, but we have to do better across the board. There's no question about it. The most frustrating thing I hear up here is that people will abandon their animals in the middle of the desert, which to me is criminal. And I know that we've been overrun with a lot of animals up here that are looking for forever homes. And unfortunately, that's not always going to be the case, especially with the older animals. But make no mistake, I know that across the county, we have work to do when it comes to animal care and control. Marcia Mayette is here, who's been committed to working on that, including fighting for more funding, which is necessary. So with that, I just wanted to say that I think it's important for us to recognize that there's room for improvement, but there's room for improvement in every department of every corner of not only the county, the cities, just in general.
I thank you for that, for recognizing that there are some improvements that need to be made. And you are right, abandoning animals, for anyone who is not clear, is illegal. You may not abandon animals in the desert. You could be convicted of a crime if you do that. So please make sure that you take it to an appropriate place. But the problem is, Catherine, was the reason a lot of these animals are being abandoned is that the place isn't open. a lot of times the hours are just not conducive to working class families that are coming up off that 14 freeway. So we'll talk later.
No, that's a good point. And I think that that's what we're going to, this report back and the study is going to produce is that would be an area where we need to do, we need improvement.
Yeah, and you guys know I have not been shy.
No, I know, and I appreciate it.
And I have seen changes with animal control. I'm starting to get some good comments instead of bad, which is new for animal services. So I appreciate the efforts that you guys have already made, and I hope that we're going to continue to work together to improve it.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to thank you.
No, absolutely, 100%.
It's definitely changed.
You know, Ms. Barger,
Yep.
I think part of what's being expressed here is our anxiety and our desperation really at Antelope Valley, including the city of Palmdale, the city of Lancaster, and the unincorporated areas, just being on the behind, in other words, in terms of funding, in terms of service, in terms of providing the things that we contract with the county to provide to these areas. It goes in transportation. We talked about mental health a little while ago. We talk about the sheriff's department. I mean, in all of these categories, I think the feeling is widespread, certainly on this council.
Then I look
we're not
forward to
getting-
working with you to address that. And I think that I actually take issue with animal care and control in particular, because I know that when the facility was built up here, it was built recognizing that the Antelope Valley needed the services. Again, can we do better? Absolutely. But you all are a contract city with the county. And so I would say, just like you're a contract city with law enforcement, with libraries, I mean, across the board, not libraries, but I mean, a contract city. So you are our customer. And I think it's important for you through your council, but also your city manager, to make your needs known as our customer.
Well, I think that this joint meeting, I thank you for being the chairperson for this. These joint meetings gives us an opportunity to address this collectively with you directly. I have every confidence in you as our representative. It's the county, the bureaucracy, it's the rest of it that somehow we end up on the short end of things.
I hear you, and that's why I will continue to fight, not only for animal care and control, but as you brought up mental health. I think it's important. And this region, when you look at the growth up here, this region is the fastest growing area in the county and cannot be ignored, nor should be ignored. And I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Laurel Forest.
Why don't you call them all?
Just
Just
one.
one? Okay. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I quite agree with Madam Supervisor Barger and Mayor Bittencourt. It is a crime to abandon an animal without care in the desert. However, the unfortunate problem is that for many years now, the Palmdale and other shelters in the Antelope Valley have not been able to take in cats, all the felines. What they're doing is subordination of a felony. They are instructing people, and I've witnessed this myself at their building. And last week, volunteering at the Dolores Huerta Foundation, 2 men
30
came along
seconds.
with two-week-old kittens that they took to the shelter and were told, take it back to the dirt road in the desert where you found them. They rescued them, they found them, and they're told to abandon them. It's heartbreaking to see this. And now myself and a friend of mine who are partners in dog rescue, and we, pardon me? I'm so sorry. We have written and presented a comprehensive program to cut down the overpopulation of animals, to increase public education. I hope when this reaches your desk.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is Stephanie English is going to come and talk to you and get the information, and we'll follow up with you, okay? All right, I'm going to have my stand-in.
Can we do real quick? Can I call for the vote?
Yeah.
While she makes her way up?
Yep, call for the vote.
City Council members Doris,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item number, oh, I'm sorry, Palmdale, Lordy. I apologize.
Are you trying to-
Yeah, the light is on, but
Madam Supervisor, are you trying to prove my point?
yes, I know. Touche.
That's-
Mayor Bettencourt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Alarcon,
Yes.
Council members Loa
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Palmdale has voted.
Yeah.
Lancaster has voted. The vote is unanimous. And I look forward to that report. And again, I would encourage both cities to engage with with animal care and control and with the report so that we can be customer centric. All right, with that, we're going to move on to the Antelope Valley Community Workforce Agreement, CW.
Have the speaker introduce
Anyone need a
themselves.
break?
We have a presentation on this. Do we? Okay.
We're going to take a short break.
Friends,
There you go.
hello.
Testing, 1, 2. Oh, that sounds good.
I don't believe so. I think Catherine Barger set this minute for 1 minute. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. If the Palmdale City Council would please step forward.
Mayor Betancourt and I are present.
Well, you guys called for women. Here we are.
I'm here.
I think we have to wait for one other.
No. I believe our other members are making their way back, so we can continue.
I hear footsteps behind me. I'm just trying to find how to get in. It's down this behind you.
Oh, they came this way.
Oh, they came around. All right. Good.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back into order at 6:10 p.m. Just a quick introduction. My name is Angie Hughes, and I am the president of the Antelope Valley Fair Board. Before you guys beat me up, I am a long-term resident of the Antelope Valley Fair, or Antelope Valley. I've served in many capacities, Girl Scout leader, ETA, and I've represented both Palmdale and Lancaster. So let's move on. We're looking at item 7.3, the Antelope Valley Community Workforce Agreement. It looks like there's recommendations. Number 1, approve and authorize the city managers or their designees to collaborate with LA County and Orange County Building and Trade Council to identify, support, and/or pursue changes to the vehicle miles traveled metric established by the state of California through the passage of Senate Bill 743. There are no commas in this, people. Number 2, approve and authorize the city managers or their designees to negotiate with the Los Angeles Orange County Building and Trade Council a mutually beneficial community workforce agreement. Mayor Betancourt?
So first of all, I just want to make a note that is Austin recused himself or has he left?
Councilmember Bishop has recused himself from the balance of the agenda.
Okay.
I believe we do have a staff report on both ends
Oh, okay.
on this matter.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and have the staff report. Come on up.
Good evening. It will be a brief staff report, I promise. So good evening, Chairperson Hughes, mayors and council members. I'm Trolis Niebla, the Assistant City Manager for the City of Lancaster. And this item is, as Chairperson Hughes stated in the recommendations, it's a recommendation really for both cities to mutually work together to collaborate with the Building and Trades Councils to pursue some much needed changes to Senate Bill 743 that will really streamline development, lower housing costs, and create jobs here in the Antelope Valley. Skilled, high-paying jobs, mortgage-paying jobs. Both cities have a history of working and collaborating with the unions. In 2018, both cities respectively signed their community workforce agreements with the Los Angeles Orange County's Building and Trade Councils. That really strengthened the AV's commitment to using local, skilled, and trained workforce labor to construct our capital improvement projects. Since that time, we've constructed hundreds of millions of dollars of projects using that local workforce. That's all through the work of these councils that we've created thousands of jobs here in the Antelope Valley by doing that. So now there's an opportunity for the unions and the cities to work together to pursue changes needed on Senate Bill 743 to help streamline development. This bill went into effect in 2020, and it changed the metric that we use during the environmental process of a project. It changed us from we used to use what was called level of service to identify traffic impacts. Now we use VMT. What this meant for suburban areas like the Antelope Valley throughout the state is it has become very difficult, very costly, and a lot of times impossible to mitigate the traffic impacts on a project. So what this has done is add millions of dollars to a lot of projects that we're working on. It's slowing development, and it's in a lot of cases, we're seeing it actually kill the development projects. This all leads to higher housing costs and less jobs up here in the Antelope Valley. So recently, because of this, we've engaged in conversations, both cities with the Building and Trades Council, to collaborate and see if we can work on something that's mutually beneficial, work through the changes needed to change SB 743 so that it unlocks this gridlock of development that we're seeing. With that, I'd like to move that the councils take the recommendations as identified in the staff report, and we are available for any questions if you have any.
Council, do I have a motion?
Before I make the motion, which I'm happy to do, I would like to suggest, so just say a couple things before so I can explain what my motion means. Our CWAs are for a period of 5 years. They were executed in 2018, so they're set to expire very, very soon, but they're likely to extend another 5 years based on these renegotiations. We talked earlier about the Center for Transportation Excellence, which very likely will be open for business in 4 to 5 years. The CWAs that we set forth now, that we enter into negotiations about now, will be impacted by the CTE, and we want to make sure that we take all of those matters into consideration. 114,000 direct and indirect jobs for the Antelope Valley is the magnitude of that is huge. So I would like to introduce the motion, but maybe suggest that we as council members, because the CWAs will be so important moving forward, that we have council representation on I think the direction is that we direct staff, but I would like to suggest that maybe we have council representation included in the ongoing negotiations with the trades.
So is that a motion?
Sure. That's her.
That's your motion.
Do we have a second on her motion? Motion failed. You gonna second it? All right, so we have a motion and a second with the amendments.
Wait a minute. I'd like to add something to it. I think Andrea has a good point. I think that there should be a council representative from both cities on negotiating that agreement. And I would like to amend the motion to add the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem from Palmdale or their representative to attend that negotiation for the workforce agreement.
Sir, I respectfully disagree. If you look at our campaigns as elected officials, a big chunk of money often comes from our unions, and I would hate for someone to be perceived as one hand washing the other. So I think we need to keep those distinctly separate.
If I heard you right, Councilman Andrea, you wanted it, your recommendation is to approve and authorize the city managers or their designees. So your motion was to put a council member on that?
Right, in addition to the city managers, to have a council representative from each council, one from Lancaster, one from Palmdale, to join in the negotiations moving forward.
Right, so that was a first and a second.
Could we
Is that
make it
not okay? Are you specifying you want the mayors?
Yeah, I want the vice mayor and the,
Will any of your other councilmen be okay for you?
did they do this all the time?
Yes. Welcome to
What was your question?
Palmdale has a motion to approve and authorize city managers or their designees, and she's added a council member to this.
I added the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem, that either they or their designee.
Or their designee.
Right, what I don't want to do is delay it with votes as to who's, let's just get it done.
I just want to have a provision in there that there can be no conflict of interest.
That's why you would use a designee.
A designee, very good. Well, a designee,
Okay,
okay. So Mayor, that was your first? Are you able to motion?
that's the motion.
Awesome. You have a first and a second?
Will somebody make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Darryl?
All right, there's a first and a second from both cities.
Well,
Now we
wait a
have to
minute.
go into joint council discussion.
My understanding is that there's been an alternate motion, which is that specifically designates the mayor pro tem for the city of Palmdale and the vice mayor for the city of Lancaster.
Or their designees.
Well, there was an amendment to the motion that I made.
Right.
We can vote on that, and if it fails, then we can do something else, but
As long as those members have no conflict of interest. In other words, they have not received any kind of funding for their campaigns.
So as the maker of the motion on the Palmdale side, I will accept that as a friendly amendment, so long as the second to my motion will also accept.
Second.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
We have a motion and a second from Palmdale.
Joint council discussion?
Yeah, can I ask one question just for clarification purposes? The designee has to be from the council.
No,
Yeah, it has to be from the respective city. Yeah.
have to be from the city, but doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
council person.
And you could even make it from the council if you want. Would that,
Like,
would
let's
that be better?
say that it's me and I've got a conflict. I can pick a designee
Excuse me.
to replace me.
Then why aren't you picking?
Why am I not? I don't know. Or their designee is what it says.
Eric, what would you like?
It's fine. I think that the standard protocol is to have the mayor pick the designee.
But I don't want to do that.
I'm good with that.
My motion is my motion.
So we could clarify the motions. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The friendly amendment has been accepted and
Thank
seconded
you.
on the Palmdale side. There's a motion on the floor on the Lancaster side. It has been seconded. We've got two motions. Without any further discussion from the council.
Call for the vote?
To public comment. and
Public
then take a vote.
comment.
Yeah. Public comment.
Catherine McLaren, that is our only public speaker card.
Is that the only speaker?
Good evening, Ms. Hughes and mayors and council. I would like to say that the building trades look forward to collaborating with you. It's all about making a win-win situation for everyone. We've done great work. We brought a lot of people into our trades, and they have done very well, and they are doing, many of them are purchasing homes.
30
And
seconds.
with the work up here, they're able to spend time with their families. So we really look forward to working with you. And Chris would be here, but if most of you don't know, they have taken him to Washington. We're getting another area rep, but that just means that we're going to have area representation and also someone in Washington to help us. So it's even going to strengthen these kind of agreements that we're working on. And I look forward to working together. Thank you.
Can I?
Kathy, before you
Kathy?
leave, could I please have you tell how you're related to the unions? I don't think the public knows.
So I work for a labor management corporation. So I work for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and the National Electrical Contractors Association, and in a labor management corporation for operation. So I work for both sides, and simply my job is business development. I work on being a director of transitional technologies. I try to keep advanced ideas on knowing exactly where we're going next, where we should be, and how we should get there by making partnerships. And we're willing to help in any way we can. And so I look forward to working with you. Thank you again.
I have a question, Kathy. Kathy, this is Councilman Doris. Can you tell us about how many, because you've been to our city council meetings, how many laborers we have up here approximately in the Antelope Valley that are looking to work in their own city?
So I would say each trade, we have at least 1,100 IBEW workers, not counting our Kinky Sharia workers. I know the iron workers alone in the program that they worked with the city of Palmdale have brought in 400 iron workers that are new journey people. So we have in the state of California the highest apprenticeship of all the nation. So we are taking in a lot more and doing a lot more programs than anywhere in the nation. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions?
Kathy, I've never heard anybody introduce themselves alone.
Well, if you look around the
I'm
valley,
teasing you.
but if you look around the valley, we do a lot because we feel our workers here are part of the community, and that's why we like to sponsor the events. We're all about bringing veterans in and supporting veterans. So if you see the IBW NICA on signs on the boulevard or wherever you're seeing that, that's the shorter version for my long title. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there any further additional joint council discussion? City of Palmdale? No, there was no more public.
Hey,
Sid-
let me say one thing. Of all the things we're going to do here tonight, this is the most important. I have no doubt about it. I wasn't always the biggest fan of labor, but what I've learned is that if we want houses that don't fall down, that don't result in massive litigation, that are constructed appropriately, you use union labor. It also gives us pensions, also gives us health insurance. Most of the problems that the city face, if you used union labor on these projects, we wouldn't be facing. That's also why I want somebody on that group that has a history of working with labor. Marvin has that history. And what is it? Mayor Pro Tem, our titles are not the same. Alarcon has that history and relationship. It's too important to just let happen. And that's the reason for my motion. And whenever you're ready to vote,
Thank you. City of Palmdale City Clerk, can you call for the roll call vote, please?
Mayor Bettencourt?
Before we call for the roll, could you please repeat the motion so everyone is clear as to what we are voting on?
all we added to the motion is that the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem from Palmdale or their designated representative will join that negotiation to come up with a final community workforce agreement that will employ our citizens.
As long as there's no conflict of interest.
The assumption is that there cannot be a, let me finish. Let me finish.
Do I need to do this thing?
The assumption is that if there is a conflict of interest, that person will recuse themselves. It would be no different than anything else. And if there's I don't understand why that's being added to this.
Yeah. To be clear, the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Commission, governs and is the oversight for any potential conflict. If there is a matter of conflict and, for instance, I don't recuse myself on that matter, and I should have, the FPPC and the California FPPC will, intervene to enforce. So we are governed by that today. Every council meeting, every board meeting that we're on. So I don't necessarily know that we need to add verbiage to state and federal law that already exists.
But if it makes you feel better, add it. I don't care.
Okay, so now there's.
We have amended it with that statement.
I'm the maker of the motion.
So there's a motion from actually the city of Palmdale initiated that to add that verbiage about the conflict of interest. There a first.
If she needs to make a political statement, let her make it. Yes, you can add that verbiage.
Thank you. Is there a second or is there a first?
Oh.
Come on, I gotta go. I mean, come on, let's go, people. It's about conflict of interest. She's saying there's a laws that protect you. You want a little bit of verbiage? He says fine.
Okay, so I think procedurally, all we need is the maker of the motion on the Lancaster side and the person who seconded that motion to accept the friendly amendment to include the language so long as there is no conflict of interest.
I'm good with that.
And the person who seconded it is good with that?
Oh, I'll second that. Yes.
Thank you.
No conflict of interest.
Palmdale side, as the maker of the motion, I'm happy to accept that because I guarantee you I will not be taking action on any matter where I have a conflict of interest. The seconder to my motion, do you accept that friendly amendment?
This is going to be my third second on this issue?
Yes.
So,
Okay,
yes.
city, you got a first and a second in Palmdale, the city of Palmdale clerk, a roll call?
Mayor Bettencourt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Alarcon?
Aye.
Councilmember Loa?
Yes.
And
It passes unanimously. Lancaster, city clerk, please.
We have
Oh,
one
sorry.
present. Can you please?
Did you not do it all?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Eric, I'm sorry. You get so quiet.
And you were doing so.
Speaks, so it passes unanimously. Thank you.
City Council members Doris,
Yes.
Ollie,
Yes.
Van,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Only if there's not a conflict of interest.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can I say this for the audience's sake? There is a new law that just passed for us. It just stated, and they are in fact enforcing it. We all got it in our emails about the new conflict of interest as close as 6 months to a year. So we are looking at it, and our city managers and city attorneys are letting us know we cannot vote on this. So I know some people break the law, but I'm not trying to go to jail and be a pastor. We know this. We know it. All of us up here know that.
So does that complete your vote?
That's our vote.
All right. Look at passing unanimously. Woo! Doing good here. All right, that we're moving on to 7.5, the auto dealer sales tax.
6.4.
7.4.
7.4, well, see, I already pushed my page over. 7.4 Wellness Center. Recommendations, authorize each city's representative staff to develop and release a request for proposal for wellness center operations, RFP, that generally requires a proposal to include at least the following information. 1, proposed operator's identity, relevant experience, and ownership information. Number 2, proposed location of the wellness center. Number 3, proposed programming, services, and other resources to be offered at the wellness center. Number 2, authorize each city's representative staff to coordinate and work with the operator selected pursuant to RFP process above and/or the County of Los Angeles to identify potential funding sources for the operator to, number 1, identify, acquire, assemble, develop, and/or rehabilitate a site for operations of the wellness center. And number 2, operate the wellness center on a long-term basis. Number 3 of the recommendations is authorize each city's representative staff to negotiate and draft a wellness center operating agreement with the operator. Number 4, authorize each city managers or each city's city manager or his or her designee to execute all documents, including without limitation, the wellness center's operating agreement, and take all actions necessary or convenient to facilitate operators' development and operation of the wellness center. Do we have any staff reports regarding JNP 7.4?
Good evening, Ms. Hughes, mayors, and council members. I'm Sonia Patterson, Parks Director for the City of Lancaster. So I have a brief verbal presentation. The cities of Lancaster and Palmdale have been working collaboratively to establish a strategy to develop a wellness center, which will provide addiction recovery related resources and services, such as transitional housing and case management to Antelope Valley residents. The recommendations before you this afternoon will allow each city to take an important step in combating addiction and the opioid crisis, which are found to be closely linked to the homeless crisis faced by cities across the nation. Furthermore, the county has committed to assisting the cities and the selected operator to provide funding for the wellness center, or potential funding for the wellness center. In summary, the goal for the cities operator and county to work collaboratively together to develop a wellness center to provide resources and services to those battling addiction, which will ultimately benefit those in our community. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions?
I just have one question. So we're authorizing each of our respective city managers to issue an RFP to select one operator for the wellness center. Is the RFP going to be a joint RFP, or are we doing it independently and then selecting after both cities pick one? How is that working?
It would be a joint RFP with representatives from both cities developing and issuing that RFP. One city typically will be the lead issuer of that RFP, but members from both cities would sit on the review process and the selection process, and then they would independently go to both councils for approval.
Perfect. This is a much needed program on behalf of the city of Palmdale, I'd be happy to introduce the motion with the 4 staff recommendations.
I'll second it.
But what if they have a conflict?
I'm going to stop this right here. It
Add
looks
that
like we
provision,
have,
sir.
looks like we have Larissa De La Cruz, Director of Community Development, City of Lancaster. Is she speaking?
No, ma'am, just myself this evening. And
Okay. A director, we have Sophia Reyes from the Director of Neighborhood Services, City of Palmdale. Is she here?
she's here.
We have a
I was
motion
gonna,
and a
I was
second.
gonna do the presentation on
I'm
behalf.
sorry, there was
Yeah.
like
It's kind of out of order. It's not
it
her
is
fault.
out of,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm
Thank you.
doing the presentation on behalf of.
This is such an important project. We already know what Ms. Sophia Reyes is going to say.
Yeah,
We're
so-
happy to support it.
Absolutely. And like I said, we have a motion and a second already because this is such a priority for our region, I think for both cities. Anything we can do to help stop the opioid crisis, the drug addiction that's happening in our communities, I'm willing to work with anybody to help stop this crisis.
Thank you. Is there a first and a second from
On
Lancaster?
behalf of Lancaster, I'll move 7.4, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I second that.
I wanted to say.
All right, public comment. Are there any speaker cards on this?
There are no speaker cards at this time.
All right, are there any further joint council discussion? City of Palmdale, City Clerk, can you please do the roll call?
Mayor Betancourt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Malakan,
Aye.
Council members Loa
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
Thank you. Lancaster City Clerk?
City Council members Doris,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes. On
It
behalf
passes.
of Lancaster, I'm directing our staff to make certain they meet with Salva so that we know that there's sufficient language capabilities for this particular program.
Thank you. Well, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on now to 7.5, Auto Dealers Sales Tax Sharing Agreement. There's 2 recommendations. Direct staff to draft a memorandum of understanding between the City of Palmdale and the City of Lancaster based on the deal points outlined within this staff report, and authorize the city managers or their designees to execute the memorandum of understanding. Are there any staff reports on 7.5?
Chairwoman Hughes, mayors, and city council members. My name is Luis Garibay. I am the Director of Economic and Community Development for the City of Palmdale. Staff is seeking direction on developing an MOU for both cities that will reaffirm our commitment to regional collaboration and help minimize the potential fiscal impact that a city would face if it were to lose one of its auto dealerships. Now, for years, the cities have competed to attract new business and investment. This is especially true for projects that help generate sales tax revenue. As all of you know, sales tax is one of the largest revenue sources for the city's general fund, which is why cities have historically competed so hard to try to entice these large sales tax generators to the city. And the cities of Palmdale and Lancaster are no exception. It was previously stated, I think at this meeting a few years ago, that between the 2 cities, we've invested well over $100 million to incentivize business to either locate in this area or to keep them in each of the respective cities. Costco, Macy's, and other big box retail projects have benefited tremendously from the cities continuing to compete against one another. Now, don't get me wrong, there is definitely tremendous value in having these businesses located here in the Antelope Valley. But at the end of the day, it's really the business owners and the developers that truly benefit from the cities continuing to fight against each other. So to help avoid this type of situation from occurring as we move forward, staff is working on a potential MOU that would be built around our auto dealership. The MOU would be built around 3 primary deal points. First, no incentives would be offered to relocate an existing dealership. Now, although there is some California law that restricts certain incentives from being offered, this would reassert the city's commitments to not to try and lure one auto dealership to the other city. Second would be that if a dealership chooses to relocate to the other city on their own, that the city of origin would continue to receive the sales tax generated by the dealership. Now, this would help mitigate any potential general fund impacts to that city that loses that potential dealership. Third, we would work together to try to create a new incentive cap that the cities, to limit the amount of incentives that a city would be able to offer to any new dealership coming into. So if Tesla wanted to come in and open in one of the cities of Lancaster and Palmdale, we would come up with some guidelines to help make sure that we limit the amount of monies of the cities to create a level playing field and to save money for both cities long term. Now, implementing these measures would do a couple of things. One, it would prevent the pitting of the two cities against each other. It would limit the potential costs, like I mentioned, to each of the cities, and it would increase the likelihood that the existing dealerships would stay in their respective cities. Now, as we continue to build on today's theme of, I know we keep calling it One Valley, One Vision. I don't think there's any doubt that a regional approach for certain things like this particular situation greatly benefits both the city and our residents. So staff is seeking additional direction from the council based on what was presented. And then also if there's any elements that we should explore as staff or include as part of this potential MOU. I'd like to thank you for your opportunity to talk about this item tonight, and staff is ready to answer any questions. Just to clarify, I'm presenting on behalf of both cities, but both staff members are here to answer any questions.
This is a first step to move towards the tax sharing agreement, correct?
Yes, we would use this almost as a pilot program to see if there is truly benefits to it. If it is, then we can continue to expand
It's
to others.
testing whether we can work together.
Yes.
So I think that's good. With that being said, I'll approve, or I'll make the motion to approve 7.512.
I'll second that motion on behalf of the city of Lancaster.
So on behalf of the Palmdale side, I do have a question. So the recommendations are to direct staff to draft the MOU and then to authorize the city managers to execute the MOU. Is there a provision for it to be brought back to the councils before the city managers execute it so that we can review it to make sure that?
My apologies for not clarifying. Yes, the idea is for staff to work together to come up with the draft MOU to present to council. The councils, each respective council would take a look and approve, hopefully approve the agreement, and then the city manager will be able to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. With that, I would like to make the motion to adopt the recommendations with the caveat that prior to execution of the MOU, that it be brought back to our council for final review and approval.
May I ask a question? I'd like to second the motion, but I have a question. On item number 4, the dealerships that will offer a vehicle brand that currently doesn't exist in the market should not be the subject to the MOU. But the next sentence seems like it talks about the two cities working together in terms of, well, basically not competing with each other to attract a particular dealership. Is that what's meant by that second sentence?
So the idea of that third deal point would be to come up with some parameters that both cities would agree with in the situation that a new dealership would.
All right, for example, if a Lexus dealer wanted to come here, how do the two cities not end up competing against each other to try and attract a dealership like that?
And I think in the spirit of just competition, we would want the cities to compete. All we're trying to clarify is that it doesn't become a bidding war where the city of Palmdale comes and says, hey, we'll give you $1 million to locate your dealership in Palmdale, and then Lancaster comes and say, no, we'll give you $2 million. So for us to come together and come up with some guidelines that it could be, hey, we're only going to be able to offer land or fee waivers or some financial limit cap so that it levels the playing field and the dealer gets to choose as opposed to everyone just one-upping each other and making it not financially the best decision.
So that's what's envisioned by the staff recommendation here?
And all that would be included in the final draft of the MOU that would.
So I guess my concern on the new dealerships is putting a cap on it for either city is I would rather Lancaster get it than Bakersfield. So if we're putting caps on our own city and they get a better deal from Bakersfield, Mojave, Cal City, I want it here in the Antelope Valley. So I think capping it could be a problem.
As the staff, I think based on our conversations with auto dealers, the first decision that a dealer makes is to come to a region.
Okay.
It's not like a manufacturer that comes into town and says, hey, we're either going to go to Bakersfield or Nevada or Palm. It's they're going to come to the Antelope Valley. The question is which city.
Okay.
So in that instance, it would be very rare that we would be competing against a Santa Cruz or a Bakersfield or a Victorville for this dealership.
What we're saying here is what's ours is ours, what's theirs is theirs. They keep theirs, we keep ours. If they want to move around, it's on them.
All right, with that, I'll second the motion for the city of Palmdale.
Okay, do we have,
Palmdale has a motion and a second.
you added that you wanted to return to the city? No, you're good?
Yes.
Oh, so is that,
So there's
are you okay with that?
recommendations on the staff report include 1 and 2, direct staff to draft the MOU. Second, to authorize the city managers to execute the MOU. I want the intervening step of making sure that the MOU comes back to the city council for review and approval before the city managers authorize it.
Is that okay, Mark?
Yes.
Your second, is that okay? Who seconded that motion? That addition?
Yes, so amended, second.
Okay, do we have public comment on this?
Jessica Enos, DG Speaks, Michael Ross, Abraham Salcedo.
Good afternoon. My name is Jess, and I'm a citizen of Palmdale, previously a citizen of Lancaster. I'm addressing this council in strong opposition to the auto dealer shared tax agreement. Sounds a lot like Lancaster is looking for handouts and help because businesses and people are running from their city as fast as they can. It's no secret why businesses are leaving to Palmdale or even out of the state completely. Lancaster has higher crime rates, more homelessness, and a sheriff's department that is stretched beyond thin due to the lack of support from their city and county. Palmdale suffers from these things too, but Lancaster is in far worse shape.
30 seconds.
My suggestion would be that the city of Lancaster to audit how they are spending their finances and allocating funds and look to bettering their city to entice businesses to want to stay. This is the beauty of capitalism. This idea of sharing taxes is communist and socialistic at its core. To the city of Palmdale, we cannot continue to allow Lancaster's corrupt businesses, dealings, and interference affect our city. We already know the mayor of Lancaster has contributed to campaigns of our own city council, and that sounds like a conflict of interest to me. It's clear that the city of Lancaster would be the only beneficiary to this type of agreement.
Next speaker.
I'm sorry, I have no questions right now.
It's because she loves her more than you.
Next speaker.
I am opposed to the share tax. I don't pay my neighbor's electric bill. They don't pay mine. We all have our own bills to pay, and I think it just needs to stay that way. Thank you.
My name is Michael Ross. I just want to say, first of all, the statement you're in Lancaster just kind of points out your disdain for the people of Palmdale and our voice. I was highly insulted by that. This deal has nothing to do with auto. It has to do with shared sales tax, which is what Lancaster would benefit from, not Palmdale. We have Palmdale Freedom Coalition. If you guys pass this thing, we will work hard to repeal the Measure AV money. That can be repealed by the people. And what you're doing is you're taking money out of the pockets of Palmdale. We're tired of it.
Hello, everyone. We're adamantly opposed to this auto dealer sales tax sharing. There are some very basic questions that must be answered before such an idea should ever be considered. The city of Lancaster currently has higher crime rates, larger shortage of sheriff deputies, and lower average of salaries for the residents of Lancaster. When compared to Palmdale, Lancaster also rates much lower than Palmdale in terms of fiscal solvency.
30 seconds.
These things being true, what would entice any business to move from Palmdale to Lancaster? The staff report of the upcoming joint city council meeting mentions common practices used by
various cities to entice businesses to relocate and then refers such practices as negative impacts. In my opinion, this is just another way to get Palmdale's money for Lancaster. This is taking from Peter to pay Paul. And it's a horrible decision. You guys need to take care of Palmdale first. That share tax is Palmdale's, not Lancaster's.
Are there any other speakers?
Shailene Davidson, Proud Patriot, Mario Presence, Marcia.
Once again, this is a terrible idea. I have been in the Antelope Valley all my life. Palmdale, Lancaster, and now a resident of Lancaster. My question to Palmdale is, everybody is well aware that Lancaster is under investigation by the FBI. Why in the world would you want to combine your businesses? That makes absolutely no sense. I want Lancaster to flourish for the residents, but not at the cost of another city. Okay, the reality of this is business that whatever you do in the dark will be brought to the light. The decisions you make here, you will be accountable for, not only to we the people, but to God. And I need you to all think about that moving forward, because this is not a good idea. And by the way, if you want to get together, why don't you back our sheriffs so they can actually do their job, put criminals away, and actually make this a safe place for actually businesses and residents.
Thank you.
Phone's not on. There it is. Did Rex not make enough revenue off his BYD mask? Do we really think any car dealers are going to flee Palmdale and head to Lancaster? Are there any other cities in our nation that have previously or currently allowed tax flow of money to leave their city? What are the financial benefits for the city of Palmdale here? We know Camacho has opened a new dealership in the Palmdale Auto Mall, as well as Diamond Ford. Have any Palmdale dealers relocated to Lancaster? Is this just going to allow for future deals of tax dollars leaving our city? Rex is not for freedom. He's on record threatening citizens for not wearing masks, threatening his own employees of Lancaster City for not getting an experimental use authorized shot. I'm appalled that anyone would consider doing business with this man. However, knowing he has contributed to Palmdale council members' campaign, like Andrea Alicorn, I am in opposition of allowing our tax dollars being sent back to the city of Lancaster. Rex.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I think it's valued at 11 now. Good, thought I'd throw that out. Yeah, I did, as a matter of fact.
The cities of Palmdale and Lancaster are closely intertwined, and I've watched both of their development over my lifetime. When Lancaster upgraded their boulevard, did Palmdale ask about tax sharing? When Lancaster partnered with BYD creating new jobs, did Palmdale receive shares of employment tax collected? No. Lancaster is facing financial issues, and Palmdale, a valiant steward of our taxes, is ready to reinvest in itself. The allure of combining these communities for the betterment of the residents is noble. However, reallocating success where there is failure is not the answer. We don't take from the A student to give to the D student to make a C+. Lancaster, a city under FBI investigation, is trying to convince the residents of Palmdale to spend money, time, and invest in Lancaster. Palmdale, a business-friendly and freedom-loving city, is exploding with growth, while Lancaster, the last Metrolink stop, experiences longer and longer response times from emergency personnel. Palmdale's mayor lives in our community and can be seen living her daily life, while Lancaster's mayor, well, he donates to Alarcon, Loa, and Olson. The residents are tired of politicians reaching into their pocketbooks. According to the California League of Cities, Palmdale outperforms Lancaster by
I have lived in Palmdale for 39 years, so I've seen a lot of growth. And that growth was able to happen because of the tax dollars that were generated in my city. There was a comment about the auto mall that a dealership would leave one city and go to another. Its money, its tax dollars would remain in the city it left. That's a very frightening thought. To
30
think
seconds.
they're held hostage in a city that perhaps is not giving them what they need to sell their cars, and the thought that they cannot leave without being punished is very frightening for the future of our possibly joint ventures. Thank you.
Rich Gallego, Carol Ross.
Good evening, Rich Gallego from the Palmdale Freedom Coalition. First, I want to say that the idea of competition is a cornerstone of a free market economy. And for Mr. Garibay to suggest that we should somehow quash competition, I find it un-American, I find it offensive. The next thing I want to address is the idea that, well, not the idea, the fact that we know that 4 of our city council people in Palmdale have to a degree or another been campaign financed by members of the Lancaster
30 seconds.
Council or entities associated with them. Seems to me like, and I'm glad Ms. Alarcon brought this up earlier, the FPPC definition of conflict of interest is exactly this. If you're financed by people on this side, you should not be voting. You should recuse yourself because this is a conflict of interest to try and give our tax dollars to Lancaster. I should see 4 recusals on our side. And if I don't, then I don't know what Ms. Alarcon was talking about earlier.
No more speaker cards.
Oh, it was 5 council members I've contributed to, just so the record's clear. Okay.
Thank you. I'm so glad we have that on record. I adamantly oppose the auto dealer's sales tax sharing agreement. As a Palmdale resident, I oppose regionalism, and I am disturbed by the growing involvement of the city of Lancaster in the business of Palmdale. The tax sharing agreement is one example of the obvious move toward regionalism, which is becoming increasingly apparent. I do not believe this trend is beneficial to Palmdale or its residents who have the right to have their voices heard within their own city governance. Palmdale and Lancaster, as well as the other cities of Los Angeles County, already collaborate on a county level. Just as we are tired of LA County telling us what to do, we are doubly tired of being pillaged by Lancaster. Section 3A of the California Constitution states the people have the right to instruct their representatives. As a Palmdale resident, I instruct the Palmdale City Council to oppose agenda item 7.5 and to stop the move toward regionalism. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers?
Speaker cards on this item.
I'd like to make a clarification on this about, well, within the last year, we've had some major changes throughout all the car dealerships throughout the valley as far as ownership. They're all looking to expand, to do different things. And they came to me and they asked me, I've had 4 car dealers from the city of Palmdale come to us and look to relocate in the city of Lancaster. I don't think that's a good idea because what happens is because of the history that I've seen it happen, we all get mad at Palmdale. Palmdale gets mad at us for taking their car dealerships. What this is trying to do is not take any money, is not give you any money. It's saying, stop. Okay? What's yours is yours. What's ours is ours. We're not going to be manipulated by any of this, and we're going to work together to make a better Antelope Valley. But be perfectly clear, this is not giving us any money or you taking any money. This is about making sure that we're not forced to give money that's being negotiated upon back and forth, because that's what it is.
If I can say something too that hasn't been said already, is the other side of that coin. There are dealers asking the city of Palmdale for money. And, you know, the underlying threat basically is if you don't help us, we'll look to relocate to Lancaster. If we do this, that takes away their leverage.
You know, when I oppose something, I usually read it first. You know, if you look at the numbers, Lancaster gets more sales tax than Palmdale and has gotten more sales tax ever since the last 20 years. It has more to do with Costco than it does the dealerships. But I mean, that's the reality of it. And what I've seen people do for 20 years is balance this paying people to open their businesses in the respective city. You know, developers make a tremendous amount of money in cities to do that. But if we don't do that, how are we going to get campaign contributions from these developers? I mean, that's the truth of it. It really is the truth of it. It never should have been tolerated in the first place. It's reality. And I don't get campaign contributions, so sorry, folks.
Are there any comments from Richard?
We've had lawsuits between these two cities because of one dealership moving to the other city and then an attempt to it cost them millions of dollars in legal fees. This is not an attempt to stifle free competition as far as the businesses are concerned. It's an effort to have the two cities work together so we're not trying to take from each other the assets that are already there in terms of sales tax generation. So the idea is that if a dealership moves from Lancaster to Palmdale, then that tax revenue is going to stay in Lancaster and vice versa. So if a Palmdale agency wants to go to Lancaster, they can move to Lancaster. One keeps them, but the money is going to stay in Palmdale. That's the way I understand this. And then insofar as any new dealerships, this would create a mechanism for which the two cities would work together to make sure that we're not fighting each other and costing each other sales tax, costing each other legal fees, and more additional strife. The whole idea is to work together. And this is not any kind of a restraint on competition as far as auto dealers are concerned.
Lancaster, any other comments?
Absent any further discussion, I'd like to call for the question.
I have some comments. So, you know, I've read it over again and I go back and forth because I was here when we lost one of our dealerships to Lancaster and we did lose all that tax revenue. Is there anyone here from the dealerships that could speak to this? Were they invited? I'd really like to hear directly from them.
Yes. Come on up. Come on, Gus. Pull a speech
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
out of your ear without any preparation at all.
First person perspective here.
So as a car dealer, I would love to get incentives to move from one place to another, you know, if it's beneficial for the business, but on a whole for the community, it's a lot better if there isn't money being wasted. I'd rather see that money instead of being wasted on a particular dealer moving from there to another place, being used to market, to bring more people to shop local, to shop in our area. I think overall that would be a much better use for the money than to have it go to just one individual dealer particular. I don't know if that answers your question now.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, you know, what you thought about this proposal and have they reached out to the dealerships while this was being talked about?
We did, yeah. Actually, Luis came by our store and we met with all the auto dealers and we talked about it.
Okay.
I think they're, you know, we're at least I'm locally. I was born here in the Antelope Valley. I've lived here my whole life, and whatever's better for the community, in my sense. If I looked at it as just my business view, I would say, oh yeah, if we can, you know, get money to help us out with this, that, or the other, it would be, you know, as a business owner. But as a community, this is definitely better. And I think our dealers looked at it and they said, yeah, this is better for our community. We don't want the going back and forth. It's just wasting a lot of taxpayer money.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
So the motion before us is just to direct staff to come up with an MOU that must be reviewed and approved by the city council. So the motion is just to kind of see what they come up with for the MOU on this. And then each council will respectively make a decision as to the acceptance of that MOU. Am I correct on that motion?
That is a correct statement of my motion.
All right, are you ready for the vote? Okay, City of Palmdale Clerk?
Mayor Bettencourt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Alarcon,
Yes.
Council Members Loa
Yes. Yes.
and Olson. Motion passes.
Lancaster City Clerk?
City Council members Doris,
Aye.
Molly,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Passes unanimous.
Thank you. On to 7.6, Antelope Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. Recommendation is to direct staff of both cities to explore opportunities and engage in discussions regarding entering a joint effort to ensure continued funding and support of the Antelope Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. Have staff report.
Okay, good evening, mayors. Oh, I'm sorry, Chairwoman Hughes, mayors, Mayor Pro Tem, Vice Mayor, and members of the councils. Item number 7.6 was prepared by myself, Sarah Gallagher, the Deputy City Manager for the City of Palmdale, and with Patty Garibay, the Assistant Director of Community Development with the City of Lancaster. This item is to engage in the discussion and receive direction regarding potential funding provided by the City of Lancaster and the City of Palmdale to support the continued operations of the Antelope Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, including options of forming an MOU or JPA. To provide some background on this item, the Vector District is a special district formed in 1958. It provides essential mosquito abatement services to approximately 250 square miles covering Palmdale, Lancaster, and the LA County areas. Their services include spraying standing water, responding to requests to treat backyards, and providing outreach to the public about the dangers of mosquitoes and their breeding sources. Assessments have not been raised since 2005, and due to the community's growth and inflation, the expenses are now exceeding the revenues. In May 2022, Local Measure 22, a Proposition 218 vote was put forward and ultimately failed. As a result, the district is currently in a financial deficit and has had to reduce its services, specifically flyover program, curb and gutter treatments, and community outreach. The district has contacted both cities for funding assistance to continue providing these essential services throughout our community. Staff from both cities are seeking direction from the city councils to determine potential funding from both jurisdictions and an oversight structure, which may include a member from each jurisdiction's city council holding a seat on the district board. That concludes my presentation. However, staff from both cities and the district is here for any questions.
Thank you for your staff report, Ms. Gallagher. In advance of this conversation, I asked that we get some statistics in terms of how many, what type of service provision each city is receiving from the the Vector District. They're asking for contributions and funding, but we have still, to my knowledge, not received any outcomes in terms of how many, residents in Palmdale have benefited from their services, how many residents in Lancaster have benefited from their services. Without that kind of information, it's really difficult for us to determine an adequate share by both cities. Do you have any additional information on that?
Unfortunately, the only information that both cities have received are the exhibits that are attached to the staff report. However, we do have members from the district who may be able to elaborate on those.
Would love to hear from them.
I think the staff report is adequate. That's exactly what they're asking for. They're asking to explore it and the discussion to take place. That's all they're asking.
It's asking for continued funding. How much funding?
If we create JPA.
So as of September 23rd, 2022, the deficit was 283,000. I do not know if that number is still accurate.
The problem is we have to pay for it either way because it's a deficit right now. It's a service that we need. So we need to take control of it. We need to take a look at it on how to do it. And our city staff is capable of doing that. Make a recommendation to us to go into a JPA, and then JPA can look to see what we can do to control the spending.
And I absolutely understand what you're saying, although the staff recommendation says a joint effort. It doesn't say creation of a JPA.
That was just in the staff report.
That is what we're seeking guidance from the councils on, is to explore the conversations of an MOU or a JPA or what that would look like moving.
On behalf of the city of Lancaster, I'll move 7.6.
I'll second that motion. Wait a minute. Are you sure this isn't a plot to steal our mosquitoes and move them to Palmdale?
I just want to make sure we're not stealing mosquitoes from each other.
Mayor Benton, is there a motion on your side?
I'll make the motion.
Well,
Second.
Before we call the vote, I have some questions. Because it's my understanding that the Antelope Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District is not interested in joining us in a JPA whatsoever. So how do we do this? How do we?
Perhaps they can come up to the podium and tell us why they don't want to join us.
And then as the director makes her way to the podium,
I don't think they have a choice. Number one, we appoint to that district, and we have reps on that district, and it's the only alternative at this point.
well, I agree with that. I wanted to know the technicality of how that's going to work.
Would you like to speak on?
Yes, we were just wanting to entertain the idea of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm Leanne Burdick. I'm the district manager of the district. We would entertain a JPA. We just don't know exactly what that looks like, how that affects the district. We have talked to our attorney who he suggested just a simple MOU. So that's kind of where we were going with this.
But I don't think it's not working under the current conditions. So we do have to change it as far as the city's concerned, because we would be funding it. So
Right.
we have talked about it as far as the city of Lancaster, and the city of Lancaster, if we're going to fund it, then we're going to have a say-so in it. So we'll move towards that direction with our city manager.
Okay.
Okay, on our side, there was a motion by the mayor and I seconded.
Yeah, I just want to make sure your motion includes the language of a JPA. The recommendation in the staff report does not include that. So I want to make sure our motion mirrors yours.
I think staff report did include a JPA.
Marvin, will you state your motion?
To accept 7.6 with to explore the opportunities that we have with the mosquito vector control district, including a JPA.
Is that okay with your second?
So I'll second that amended motion.
And the same motion is made on behalf of the city of Palmdale.
Yes.
And seconded?
Mayor made that and I seconded.
Is there any other joint council discussion? Palmdale City Clerk?
Any public comment?
No speaker cards on this line.
Thank you. Palmdale City Clerk? For the vote?
Mayor Bettencourt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Malakan,
Yes.
Council Members Loa
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Lancaster?
City Council Members Doris,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last thing on the agenda is 7.7, the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District. Petition for review of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA decision. The recommendation is to authorize and direct each city's representative staff to work with the AVA QMD, including entering into a common interest joint defense agreement with AVA QMD regarding its filing a petition for review to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals challenging the EPA's decision. Do we have a staff report?
Let's waive the staff report. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
You're off the hook.
Oh, are we wait? You're okay with that? Waiving,
I'm okay. I've read it.
I will move on behalf of the city of Palmdale staff recommendation.
A second.
I'll move on behalf of the city of Lancaster, 7.7.
I second that.
We spoke.
First and a second, is there speaker cards?
Oh, that's right, speaker. Any speaker cards?
George Young,
Try to make this quick. I'm George Jung. I'm a senior environmental engineer for Northrop Grumman. This rule that EPA is basically slamming down our throats will cause the two major aerospace companies in the Antelope Valley not to be able to install new equipment. Currently, Northrop Grumman is in the process of designing a second large paint hangar for the strike program. We currently have 9,200 employees at Site 3, 4, 7, and 8, and this could really hamper our ability to grow further. So we would hope that the council would support the AQMD on this.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Is there any further joint council discussion?
Just a statement. Earlier, it was said that the community workforce agreement was the most important thing on the agenda. This, in my opinion, is the most important thing. It jeopardizes over 20,000 jobs in the community. And not only will they not have a place to expand, but they will not have a place for the current people to go. This is about taking credits that they've earned and eliminating them. And the EPA is trying to say that, and it's wrong. So we need to stand up against it. With
Thank
that,
you.
I call for the question.
All right. Palmdale City Clerk?
Mayor Bettencourt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Malakan,
Yes.
Council members Loa
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Lancaster?
City Council members Doris,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Man,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chris,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, are there any closing comments by the city council members?
It was fun, folks.
My only closing remark is thank you to the college. Thank you to all of those that helped coordinate this effort. We really appreciate your hospitality.
Eric?
I just want to say that City of Lancaster and the City of Palmdale have shared problems, whether it's the sheriff's contract or animal control, environmental concerns, water. And I think the supervisor said it best that we're the customer and that we need to address our concerns. And that's the whole purpose of this, because together we have that bargaining leverage. And I think this is a great thing. Thank you.
Richard?
Yes. This morning we had a meeting at City Hall, at Palmdale City Hall, with key players in the water issues that affect the Palmdale Water District and the entire area, for that matter. And it shows up once again, the need for regional collaboration, something as essential as water. We already cooperate with the AQM, the Antelope Valley Quality Management District. We do the same with the Antelope Valley Transit Authority. We have sanitation districts in which both cities are represented to deal with the sanitation issue. Water is an issue that I think we should take up at a future joint city council meeting. And I hope that that can be done. But our meeting this morning just shows up the importance on something as crucial as water. Thank you.
City of Lancaster, any remarks?
I feel sorry for the City of Palmdale's speaker.
Are there any further remarks from the city? And just for the record, I want to apologize to Eric for leaving you out of the vote. You know,
Okay.
sorry. I'm kind of new at this.
Thank you for stepping up and taking the chair.
Thank you for doing that. You're welcome. So with that, at 7:18, we are adjourned.